And to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Demonstrations will be held today against P&O's decision to sack 800 staff.
Good morning. It's 6 o'clock on Friday, the 18th of March. This is Breakfast on GB News with Stephen and Bev.
Well, we're live across the whole of the UK, of course, on your TV, on your radio and online. And here's what we've got for you today.
Unions will seek legal advice to challenge the P&O Ferries sackings after the company blamed the decision on losses of £100 million following the pandemic.
All remaining COVID travel measures have been axed. As of 4 o'clock this morning, the Department for Transport said a range of contingency measures would be kept in reserve so ministers could take swift and proportionate action in the face of potential new variants.
More than 150,000 people have signed up to house Ukrainian refugees. However, charities have raised concerns about safeguarding.
Security experts warn of a high probability of Russian cyber attacks in the weeks ahead. We have an exclusive report.
Quite understandably, the world's focus of late has been on the destructive power and human cost of Russia's conventional warfare. But experts warn we mustn't underestimate the power of Russia's cyber capabilities.
It comes as the Defence Secretary Ben Wallace and Home Secretary Priti Patel hit out at Russian dirty tricks after he was targeted by an imposter pretending to be the Ukrainian Prime Minister.
Well, don't forget, we'd love to hear from you about anything we're talking about today. Do drop us an email, gbviews@gbnews.uk, or you can tweet us at gbnews. Well, we're going to start with the news that the government's Homes for Ukraine scheme launches today, with more than 150,000 people already registering their interest.
The programme matches Ukrainian refugees with families and organisations who can provide accommodation for 6 months. But there are concerns about how it's going to work.
Yeah, lots of questions there. But meanwhile, in the Ukraine, the Ministry of Defence says Russia's offensive is being severely limited by incessant counterattacks, forcing Russian troops to defend their own supply lines. So joining us now is Philip Ingram, a former senior military intelligence officer. Good morning, Philip. What do you make of the Ministry of Defence assessment that Russia's invasion has largely stalled at this point?
Well, I think it's been largely stalled for a number of days because Putin's forces haven't achieved any of their operational objectives. They were trying to get a swift toppling of the Ukrainian government, and that didn't happen. They were trying to gain air superiority. That hasn't happened. They're trying to gain strategic targets around Kyiv with their special forces and their airborne forces. That didn't happen. And now they're going back into their playbook of surrounding cities and attacking them with rockets, missiles, artillery, and from the air to try and break the will of the people. And they've been having logistic problems and problems with the ability to move forward for a number of days now.
It raises very serious questions, though, doesn't it, about Putin's attitude to all of this? Because the real concern has been from day one, really, that if this didn't go Putin's way, he would use extremely destructive measures just to flatten the key cities.
Yeah, and that's exactly what he's doing. We saw him do that before in Grozny. We saw him do that and backing Bashar al-Assad in Syria. Putin has completely overestimated the ability of the Russian forces to prosecute this operation. It's a very complex operation, and they clearly just are not up to it. And he's underestimated the resolve and the fight that there is amongst the Ukrainian people. And it's got to the point where the Russians have been fought effectively to a standstill. And we're getting to a point where Putin's going to have to try and do something to wrestle the initiative back. Unfortunately, that something tends to be very violent and could result in a lot more civilian casualties.
Could that something also, though, of course, be effectively to starve the city, to stop resources getting into there as opposed to relying solely on military action?
Yeah, that's what he's trying to do. It's good ancient old siege tactics. You surround the city, stop anyone going in, stop anyone getting out, and then just start lobbing lots of explosives in to try and flatten the place, with the aim of trying to break the resolve of the people that are there and get the defenders to surrender to stop the shelling, because shelling's terrible. And I understand today there's unconfirmed reports coming through of even out in the west of Ukraine, Lviv airport has just been hit with missiles.
But it raises very serious questions. Again, we've been talking about it from the beginning, but if he's had this much problem trying to secure Ukraine as a territory, he's going to have even bigger problems trying to hold on to it.
Oh, the number of troops that he had were never enough to capture and hold the whole of Ukraine. There's a lot of analysis going on saying he's got hundreds of thousands of troops and large numbers of bits of equipment and all the rest of it, and Ukraine's only got a small number, and therefore Ukraine's going to lose. That's the wrong sort of analysis. It's not just a numbers game. There are four things that keep military capability going. The first one is the kit and the numbers and all the rest of it. The second one is the logistics and the ability to support that with what's needed for combat supplies and look after your people. The third one's the command and control. All of those have been found wanting. And the fourth one is the motivation of the people. And that's probably the most important. And the Russian military are not motivated to go and carry out this operation, whereas the Ukrainians are very motivated to protect and save their own country.
How important is that point, actually, Philip? At this stage, is going to be the morale. We're hearing rumours that Russian soldiers have been captured and have effectively surrendered and said, I don't want to go back to Russia, I don't want to fight. And the more those messages get out, what does that do to troops on both sides?
Well, your warfare it's horrible, and it's a very human activity. Forget the tanks, forget the aircraft, forget everything else. It's people against people, and when you break and shatter the morale of one side, then their will to fight goes, and that means the casualties go up further and further and further. And I'm seeing lots of evidence, albeit through social media and open source means, of the will to fight amongst an awful lot of the Russians has gone. And that's why the Ukrainians are having fantastic successes in stopping them. Whether the Ukrainians can then generate enough combat power to start to push the Russians out again is a different matter, but we'll see in coming weeks.
It is a surprise, though, isn't it? When you look at something like air supremacy, Russia should have secured that very quickly and very easily. Why haven't they achieved that?
Well, it's a combination of different things. It's that paper on paper comparison, and that's wrong. Their equipment. Remember, Russia's defence budget is less than the UK's defence budget, and is minuscule compared to the whole of NATO's defence budget. Yet they're trying to do something that not even NATO would consider doing with the assets that it's got at its disposal. So they're everything that they're doing is on the cheap, and they've got this culture of no bad news up to the boss, making sure that Vladimir Putin, of all the generals and all the rest of it, are told that their capability is much stronger than it actually is, and it clearly isn't. There's simple things from tires failing, so they have to abandon trucks to the side of the road, to them running out of fuel, to them abandoning their dead. Any army that abandons its dead on the battlefield and doesn't take them back has lost.
OK. Philip Ingram, former senior military intelligence officer. Good to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you. OK, Western governments and companies need to be on a heightened state of preparedness for the high probability of cyber attacks as economic sanctions on Russia begin to bite. That's according to a senior cyber security expert.
Well, critical national infrastructure and the banking sector could be the main targets, with experts warning that there are still some inherent weaknesses in these systems.
So our security editor, Mark White, has examined the risks and the likelihood of a major cyber attack on the West in the months ahead.
Quite understandably, the world's focus of late has been on the destructive power and human cost of Russia's conventional warfare. But experts warn we mustn't underestimate the power of Russia's cyber capabilities. Although the threat from cyber warfare can seem quite abstract, it has potential real-world consequences with the ability to cripple power supplies. Health services have been significantly disrupted in the past, and the technology at the heart of the West's aviation sector is at risk. Apart from an attack on some of Ukraine's critical systems in the initial stages of the invasion, there has been no concerted effort by Russia to attack Western infrastructure in recent weeks. But as economic sanctions begin to take a real stranglehold on Moscow, Vladimir Putin is increasingly likely, we're told, to unleash his cyber capabilities.
I would say there's a fairly high probability based upon the types of grey warfare, the hybrid warfare that Putin and the Kremlin have been executing against others in the space to coerce and to bully its neighbours or adversaries. I think it's a weapon that's being held in reserve right now, but we certainly need to be on a heightened level of preparedness.
The West's banking sector is also at risk, especially as Russia has been kicked out of the SWIFT international payment system. And Russia's network of criminal gangs is another potent tool in Putin's armoury.
As well as being one of the most formidable cyber powers in terms of government capabilities, Russia also has the largest concentration by far of serious organised cybercrime on the planet. And before the invasion in 2021, we saw those criminals disrupt petrol supplies in the US, healthcare in Ireland, schools in England, food retail in Sweden. The list goes on. If the Russian state were to, if you like, unleash its ransomware capabilities, its cyber criminal capabilities, then that could get, whilst not catastrophic, that could get pretty unpleasant.
Although the West's computer systems are better protected these days, there are still inherent weaknesses, vulnerabilities adversaries would look to exploit.
A lot has been done to shore up a lot of the critical infrastructure across the UK, particularly the NHS. There are still gaps in the fabric, there are still chinks in the armour that we need to be aware exist, and we need to take precautions, compensating security controls, for example, in order to ensure that perpetrators can't get through that armour.
For now, Russia's main focus is on the conventional battlefield. Any cyber attack would almost certainly provoke a response in kind from the West. In fact, in the cyber domain, Russia is already fighting off multiple attacks from Western computer hackers who've turned away from their traditional targets of big business and government at home, focusing their disruptive talents on Moscow instead.
Here's something to be worried about, all of this.
Well, we were talking about this last week, weren't we? Go on, sorry, I interrupted you.
No, I was just saying, I mean, because it's one of those things that we don't really understand.
Yeah.
Most of us. It just sort of happens, doesn't it? But it actually cause a lot of real disruption.
Yeah, and in fact, we were talking about this last weekend, in that I naively thought that's what war would look like for the West now. Would just all be online, disruptive, taking down our infrastructure in the NHS or whatever it is, government online services. And so I'm really pleased we've got that piece. I think it's quite interesting to see what we might be facing.
Yeah.
OK, the Transport Union, the RMT, has called for a series of protests against the shock sacking yesterday of 800 workers by the ferry operator P&O. The union has called it one of the most vicious examples of employer behaviour in recent history.
Well, employees were dismissed by a Zoom call and many escorted from their ships by security staff. P&O says it had to make the cuts after making unsustainable losses, and it's understood P&O will replace the sacked employees with cheaper agency staff.
So joining us now is Simon Calder, travel editor for The Independent. Good morning, Simon. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, you're down in Dover this morning. The unions encouraged workers to stage a sit-in. Is that still going on?
Well, it's not going on at the same scale that it was, most definitely. I've been here for pretty much the last 24 hours since the first rumours started to emerge. And the mood yesterday was just shock and devastation. That has turned overnight to real anger at the way that people have been treated. And I would actually go beyond the RMT statement, saying it's one of the most egregious acts of industrial relations. I've never seen anything like this in the field of travel and transport. We've seen over the COVID pandemic lots of travel firms saying, look, we've got to restructure, and they've talked to the unions, and it's been described as fire and rehire, whereas P&O Ferries is fire and don't rehire. We've got a whole lot of cheaper workers who are waiting in the wings ready to come in and pick up the service. I've never seen anything like it. I think P&O Ferries has been extremely badly advised, and I think that this will actually end with them re-employing those people. I can't see it ending any other way.
I mean, there's a real danger, isn't there, Simon? I mean, because this is a PR disaster. I mean, there's no two ways about it. But also, it's got the potential, at least, to cripple the ships for some time. Mm-hmm. That, I mean, they're a substantial part of our trade, as well as all the tourists that they move about.
Yeah, and it's the trade aspect that's most serious, particularly between Northern Ireland and Scotland, actually, on the Cairn Ryan to Larne link. There is enough capacity here in Dover on the short sea crossings. You've got DFDS, you've got Irish ferries, you've also got, of course, Eurotunnel just down the coast from here. But on the route also from Hull to Rotterdam, from Liverpool to Dublin, that is going to have quite an effect, I'm afraid, on the availability of capacity, which is why I think the government will now be working very hard to find out what they can do to persuade P&O Ferries to rethink, rehire, and then start negotiating with the unions.
What does this mean, Simon, for passengers, for people who had tickets booked yesterday waiting to get onto ferries, or for people who are expecting to travel over the weekend? What would your advice be for those people?
Well, if you're at Dover going to and from Calais, it's quite straightforward. You will just be carried by DFDS ferries. However, there is not an agreement on the other lines. P&O Ferries is saying slightly unhelpfully, really don't travel unless you absolutely have to. But of course, a lot of people will be making essential journeys. And for them, I'm afraid this is that they are just going to have to try and find space on other operators, generally buying tickets and then trying to claim the money back for their original trip from P&O.
Is this a sign of a company being a little bit too greedy? I mean, I know P&O was taken over a number of years ago. I mean, they wanted, £100 million or so in a government loan, didn't they, to get through the COVID situation, while still paying out £270 million in dividends to shareholders. I mean, that's never going to go down well.
Well, P&O Ferries, the DP World, the company which owns them, says that they've lost £100 million as a result of this extraordinary competition on the channel, and they can't afford to do that. It works out at £3 per second, and they've not taken a penny in dividends from this operation. And no doubt that's all true, but there are different ways to deal with that than simply getting all your ships in port, getting all the workers off and putting a new lot on. It's simply not going to work.
Simon, can we ask you about COVID travel restrictions? Because they came to an end at, for some reason, the very odd time of 4 o'clock this morning. I mean, the travel industry has been so badly hit by all of this over the last couple of years. What impact do you think this will have now?
Well, it's going to be great. It's obscured, of course, by the P&O Ferries thing, but everybody coming off those ferries just down the road from me here, no restrictions, no testing whether or not you're vaccinated, no passenger locator form. The travel industry has at last got something to celebrate.
Does this mean, Simon, that we're going to see prices shoot up? Because I'm one of those people who's booked nothing and I'm now slightly regretting it, with summer feeling like it might not be that far away. Am I going to expect to pay a premium for the increase in demand?
Oh, you are certainly going to have to pay a lot more than you did in 2019. But I think most people are going to be glad just for the opportunity to travel without restrictions. I'm so sorry. I've got to go now.
OK, Simon, thank you. Catch up with you later, hopefully. He's a busy man.
He's the busiest
man.
man.
He's one of those men
I know.
that when there's a travel story, you want to get hold of him because he knows his stuff. So clearly, he's got a few more interviews.
I was thinking, I'm only here because Anne Diamond is on a cruise. It's not a P&O cruise, is it?
It's not, no.
She's not going to arrive here any minute.
No. No, she's all right.
Oh, she's having a lovely holiday.
She sent me a picture. She's supping cocktails in a pool at the moment.
Good, I'm glad.
So she's having a nice
Good
time and then relax after a busy couple of months. OK, let's run you through some of the other top stories this morning. And more than 1,400 people have been arrested in a week as part of a nationwide crackdown on county lines drug gangs. £4.25 million of Class A and B drugs were seized during the operation, which took place across England and Wales.
Unions are urging the government to reverse its decision to suspend the state's pension triple lock. The TUC says April's 3.1% increase compared to 8.3% under the triple lock formula will cost pensioners almost £500 a year.
1 in 10 patients booking GP appointments online request to see the doctor face-to-face. A study by the Health Foundation analysed more than 7.5 million records and found that most patients were happy with telephone or video calls.
The Duchess of Cornwall has been made Royal Patron of the National Theatre by the Queen. It's the first of the Duchess of Sussex's former patronages to be taken over.
I'm not surprised about that GP issue, that most people are actually happy with phone calls or being online.
Some things are. I mean, some things you can do. It's quite nice to just pick up the phone to the GP, but I don't want us to lose that personal contact.
But it's the whole idea of a triage, isn't it? I think that you can speak to if you can speak to the GP more quickly than getting an appointment, and then they say, right, we need you to come in. Then they're going to get you in quite quickly.
Yeah, I hope
so. It's an interesting triage system, I think.
You know, sometimes you just say, Doctor, I need you to have a quick look at this. You can't really do that on the phone, can you? Do you know what I mean?
No.
You know, I know someone at the moment who's got a skin complaint.
Oh, right.
And so he had to do the Zoom thing and then, pick up his phone and go, look, it looks like this, and do a skin sort of assessment like that, or take photos. That's surely better in real life, isn't it?
It's awful when you've got an embarrassing rash, isn't it? But
I hope you're enjoying your breakfast.
I hope it clears up soon. That's what I'm saying. It's going to clear up soon.
It's not mine. I didn't do. I have a friend who.
I have a friend.
No, honestly, I promise you. And also that royal story, I think, is quite interesting because we've got our paper reviewers in here soon, so we'll look at that in a bit more detail. Queen's got all Meghan's roles to hand out, hasn't she? So. First one's gone to Camilla.
We shall see what happens. Keep your thoughts coming in. If you would, gbviews@gbnews.uk. Would love to hear what you think about any of the stories we're covering today. We've got lots more still to come for you, including talk of a fourth COVID jab, as the elderly could be offered one as soon as next week.
Good morning, I'm Alex Deakin with your latest weather from the Met Office. A cold one out there this morning, and for some a foggy start, but generally it's going to be a cracking day, if you like, spring sunshine. High pressure is with us, sitting pretty much slap bang across the UK, and it's going to stick around for the next couple of days, bringing plenty of blue skies with it. Having said that, as I said, it's quite grey for some this morning, parts of the Midlands, Wales, southern England. We've got some dense patches of fog. It will be clearing steadily through the morning, should be gone by late morning. And once it has gone, it's then pretty much sunny spells across the board. It is cold out there this morning, but the sun is pretty strong at this time of year. So it will lift the temperatures steadily, and by this afternoon, we're looking at temperatures well above average, widely into the teens, and we could reach 16, 17, maybe 18 Celsius inland. A little cooler in the far northwest, where the breeze will be picking up once more. And the breeze will pick up across southern parts through the evening as well. For For most, though, it's a clear evening, but those temperatures will be falling away. It's going to be pretty cold if you're heading out this Friday evening. Not as cold as the night just gone, not as frosty because there will be more of a breeze around. Temperatures mostly holding up in low single figures. But a chilly start to Saturday. And then it's another cracking day with plenty of sunshine. Shouldn't be as foggy first thing either. And as you can see, up and down the land, we're expecting blue skies during the day. Notice, however, the winds will be stronger. Quite noticeable winds across southern England, South Wales, Northern Ireland and western parts of Scotland. So just be aware of that. That will make it feel a little cooler than these numbers would suggest. But look at that, maybe 16 in Glasgow, 16 Birmingham and London, 15 in Plymouth, well above average. Not quite as warm on Sunday. It will be a cloudier day for sure. And the easterly breeze picking up once more, maybe even bringing a few showers across East Anglia and the southeast, but dry and bright for many.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
From all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
That you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
It is 6:26 now as Russian shelling continues in major cities. Let's head to Dnipro, central Ukraine, and talk to the freelance journalist Lydia Huchva about what is happening there. Morning to you, Lydia. I mean, it's very difficult from our perspective to get really good information about what is happening within Ukraine. What is the situation in Dnipro this morning?
So, hello. I can tell you about my morning. I suppose it's a morning for every Ukrainian person. You just open the phone and read where the bomb. So if you're not in shelter, you have a connection, then you just want to check if your relatives are safe, if your home. So as for me, I'm from Kiev originally, and now I'm Dnipro. I'm checking every day if my flat still exists, which is in Kiev. And I call my friends and ask if they're alive. So this is first what you do if you are in peaceful part of Ukraine. And also I read about bombs. Yesterday we had 2 bomb attacks on Dnipro, but we was happy that our air defense could shoot this bomb in the air. But it's not every day so lucky. So in previous days bombs hit Dnipro. So you just read news.
I mean, what are you being told then about the situation in Kiev? I mean, not just the attacks, but also supply lines of food and water and power.
I call friends and ask, or I'm in internet and I'm in Facebook and Messenger, but first possibility to know news is call friends. I have friends in every region of Ukraine, and we are still in contact.
Sorry. I was going to say, just tell us a bit about Dnipro. We're familiarising ourselves with Ukrainian cities that we may never have heard of before. Dnipro is more of the centre of the country, isn't it?
Yes, that's because it's still quiet. It's only bombs, and you should imagine the whole city is full of people from territorial defense and military. Whole city is preparing. You see on every street some signs, some sandbags, some metal stuff to stop vehicles. And if you want to go outside the city, you see checkpoints, you see police in the city. So Dnipro is preparing.
How much of a determined people are the Ukrainians in the face of this?
Determined means prepared, or determined as in fact in Hakatam?
Well,
So
I was going to say, because the fight back against the Russians has been incredible, hasn't it?
Yes, of course. I mean, the people, I suppose Russians believed their propaganda themselves. They believed that we are waiting for them with flowers. And it's like not like that. Even Russian-speaking people, they are fighting with Russians. Even people with Russian original, it doesn't matter which nationality you actually are. It doesn't matter which language you speak. In these days, we are just protecting our world from invaders.
OK. Lydia, we've got to leave it there, but really good to talk to you this morning. Thanks very much indeed. Now, the Health Secretary, Sajid Javid, says a fourth COVID jab for the general public is possible as immunity wanes, but unlikely until the autumn.
However, for those over 75 in care homes or who are immunosuppressed, a second booster jab could be offered by the end of the month, which is basically next week.
Yeah. Let's talk to Dr. Emma Mee, who's a GP registrar and academic clinical fellow at Oxford University. Morning to you. Is this a sensible way forward, certainly for those who are more vulnerable?
Yes, because the reason why the fourth COVID jab is being offered for certain groups is because we know that immunity drops off after COVID vaccines. We don't have a lot of data after the third booster yet, but it seems like it could be a drop off in the same way as after the second jab, and research shows that that's maybe over 5-6 months that 20 to 30% drop off in effectiveness against symptomatic infection, and then also because people in those vulnerable groups and people who are who have weakened immune systems, we know don't respond as well as healthy people to the vaccines, and maybe 4 in 10 people with weakened immune systems don't have the same response as the normal population, and therefore that's why they need the additional boosters.
Emma, we know that the vast majority, over 95% of people in the country now, according to the ONS, have antibodies, whether that's through natural infection or vaccination. Would you think that if you've had COVID, that should be factored into the decision as to whether to go for a fourth jab?
I think it's a difficult thing to answer, because it's about the natural the immunity from natural infection also drops off. So although you may have antibodies, but at what time do you have antibodies? And you can expect to have less antibodies over time. So I think everyone's pretty much in the same boat between previous natural infection or previous vaccination, and that probably won't make a difference in the policy.
I mean, we're looking at these extra jabs. It raises the question, how needed are they? What are we seeing in terms of infection numbers at the moment, as far as we can glean?
Infections are definitely going up right now, quite significantly over the last 7 days. So is hospitalisation. Deaths are still not going up very much, a little bit. In terms of for the general population about whether we'll all need fourth jabs or not, it really comes down to a benefit versus cost. So vaccination program isn't free, and you know the logistics of it are obviously very, very challenging, and then we have to measure that against the benefit of, well, how much of an extra boost in the immune response and for how long are you going to get that? And that data, certainly in terms of the general population, is limited at the moment, and I wouldn't say there's enough evidence to suggest that that the fourth jab should be rolled out immediately to wide scale general population.
And would you do you think we would, as a doctor, would you also like to reiterate the importance of personal responsibility for health at this stage? We know now that low vitamin D is a huge contributory factor to poor outcome from COVID. High body mass index also is a contributory factor. Would you like to say something about those sorts of measures that people can take to protect themselves and to be reassured?
Absolutely. I think going forwards, this is all going to rely on personal responsibility. And that's absolutely the right way forward, because although there's no legal requirement for all sorts of things now, but just because there's no law doesn't mean that people won't take the measures to protect themselves. I think we live in a society now, 2 years on, that is relatively educated about COVID. And one thing that I would like to highlight, which I've always been a very strong advocate of, is also for those who are ill with COVID as well, that active monitoring by yourself at home is really important, and one of the things that has been rolled out with the NHS, and also there's been discussion about, is about people having pulse oximeters, which is basically measuring devices to measure the oxygen saturations at home, which can be very, very effective in terms of noticing deterioration and really saving lives.
Yeah, okay. Dr. Mee, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. I'll be getting my fourth jab hopefully next month. Can't wait, frankly. Let's get on with it, I think, because I'm in a vulnerable category, so I'll say get it done. Okay, stay with us. We've got lots more coming your way. We've got all the newspapers. I've lost the words. We've got all the newspapers. Joanna Williams and Kevin Craig will be here.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back. 6:38. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Bev on your TV, on your radio, and online.
We're going to take a look at today's front pages now. Western intelligence officials believe President Putin may abandon his plan to send troops to fight in Kyiv because of fierce resistance and supply problems. That's according to The Eye.
The Times is reporting that Ukraine is taking the fight to Putin as it's now counter-attacking against stalled Russian positions. This as the invaders are thought to have lost about 7,000 troops and 230 tanks.
The Guardian's top line reads, "Nations unite to condemn Putin over war crimes." The paper also claims France believes Vladimir Putin is only pretending to be interested in negotiating a peace deal.
Russia has targeted the Home Secretary and the Defence Secretary with fake video calls as imposters posed as the Ukrainian Prime Minister. That's according to The Telegraph.
Mutiny on the P&O Ferries, says the Mail. The ferry company was in crisis last night with staff in open revolt. In shocking scenes, distraught crews staging sit-ins on their ferries were hauled off by thug security teams, some wearing balaclavas and carrying handcuffs.
Up Ship Creek is the fabulous headline from the start, as it describes P&O bosses as scumbags for the way they sacked staff yesterday. The ferry company plans to replace Brits with cheap overseas staff, according to the paper.
And the headline writers have had a ball today. This one in The Sun. What a bunch of anchors. The Sun says there is a furious backlash ensued yesterday. Boris Johnson's spokesman said the job cuts were wholly unacceptable.
Well, let's talk through some of those papers. And for you this morning, the author and academic Joanna Williams and Labour councillor Kevin Craig. Good to see you both this morning. We're going to talk about P&O in a second, Kevin, but let's have a look at the Times first of all, Joanna, and DVLA staff.
Yeah, this is a story that's going to enrage anybody. You'll be choking in your cornflakes when you hear about this one. So this is anybody who applied for a driving licence during lockdown and had to wait and wait and wait and might still well be waiting. DVLA staff basically paid to stay at home, not just working from home, but to stay at home and not work. They were being paid out of taxpayers' money, and essentially a large proportion of them had what was called paid leave. So like I said, this is a distinction between working from home. This is being at home and not working. Meanwhile, envelopes were stacking up in the DVLA offices, going unopened. And then we all know that when lockdown ended, we had this huge crisis of shortage in the supply lines, of lorry drivers not being there.
Why were they not? I mean, is this simply because there is a physical aspect to the work and you have to get hold of the paperwork?
I think that was one side of it, that you had some people who were clinically vulnerable and weren't able to go into the office, and that's fair enough. And obviously during that time, before we had the vaccines, it was really important that people who were clinically vulnerable were able to work from home. But the problem was a proportion of those people then weren't able to log on to computers at home. And I think then, extra steps should have been taken. Personally, I'd have gone round and given them envelopes and said you could sit in bed and open these envelopes and deal with them. There should have been some way to allow people to work from home, whereas people who couldn't log on for whatever reason were then just being told, great, we'll pay you to stay at home and do nothing. Yeah. It's outrageous.
Apparently there were 60,000 pieces of post at the office. Like you say, why did somebody not organise and go, you know what, you go and pick up 500 of them today and ship them into houses? She says there was a lack of imagination.
There was, but also I think just a sense like these people are public servants.
That's right.
As far as I'm concerned, you know, it's a job, of course, and they need to be paid the right amount to do that job. But they also have a kind of duty to keep the country running, particularly at a time like lockdown.
Unfortunately, sorry, but some agencies and government bodies, it feels sometimes they used COVID as a bit of an excuse, where other parts of the public sector were incredible. And this story today is just, it's unfortunate for everybody working in the public sector. It just gives a really bad reputation. Of course, the Daily Mail love it, unfortunately.
Well, they're raising it to our attention, which is a fair point. Talking of jobs, though, Kevin, talking of jobs, P&O. I mean, this, frankly, beggars belief.
It does, but you and Bev have stolen all the good lines with these front pages this morning. And it's interesting, right? Day 22 of the Ukraine crisis, and it's the first day, I think, where the British media's front pages are really, truly split onto a different story. This will not last. So the story, as we all know, is about 800 plus workers basically being fired so that cheaper versions can be brought in. It is, I've chosen the front page of the Express, betrayal, but I'm going to go to a comment by their business editor, Jeff Ho, and he says here, surely with the financial muscle early in the morning of owner DP World, P&O Ferries could have executed a turnaround without the need for so much carnage. And when you have a corporation in this country using bouncers with balaclavas, with handcuffs, with a robot, he might as well have been given his message yesterday. I mean, I founded a communications company 16 years ago. I've done lots of difficult announcements at PLMR. This is one of the worst examples of a corporation in this country ever making an announcement like this. And I think it's probably going to be proven illegal. And this story is got days to run.
I was going to say, there's got to be legal consequences to this, surely. It just doesn't sit right, does it?
It doesn't.
No, presumably their lawyers have been through it.
Well, you presume so. I mean, this is the funny thing. Somewhere in a room, men and women sat down and did a strategy for this announcement. Who are they? I haven't seen a single living, breathing, talking head for P&O Ferries in the last 24 hours.
But isn't this, if you put your Labour councillor hat on for a minute, isn't this just about the fact that workers' rights have been reduced and weakened over the last 3 decades, arguably, to the point with 0 hours contracts and this idea that we have a gig economy and nobody can commit to a job. This is kind of where we end up, isn't it?
Well, employee rights have been weakened over time, but what has happened here is, and you don't have to do it like this. One of the lawyers from the very well-regarded law firm Shakespeare Martineau said, when an employer, in the Express again, plans to make 20 or more redundancies, there's a requirement for a period of consultation with employee representatives. You can't do this. And the truth is, for listeners and viewers, if you go back into the numbers behind this announcement, the parent company of P&O Ferries, has got DP World, is owned by a Dubai sovereign wealth fund, right? And it's just trite and insulting to our intelligence to say the money is not there to do this differently. This will not hold.
No, absolutely.
They just want to cut human cost, the cost of
So I live in
employing
Canterbury, and the human cost of this, like you say, will be absolutely appalling. So Dover's just down the road from us, and the idea of 800 people in Dover losing their jobs at this time when every newspaper's talking about the cost of living crisis, it's unbelievable the impact that's going to have on families in the area.
Look, talking of families, Joanna, this in the Mirror, they've got this band of mothers to talk about, which is... it's the very best of human nature, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think one of the stories that's really come out of the Ukraine war that's really struck me is just the bravery of people when they're in these dire circumstances. I mean, the bravest of them all has got to be Volodymyr Zelensky, really, the leader of Ukraine, who goes out there night after night making these videos, rallying up the citizens. But a lot
there's a target on his back,
completely,
quite literally.
and all his family as well. But a lot of these stories have been about men men, understandably, very, very young men going out and fighting for their own country. But actually, here's a story of women my age, mothers, who are driving through into these really dangerous, bombed out war zones, again, targets on their cars, and rescuing orphans who are trapped essentially in underground bunkers. They've managed to get 270 children out from underground bunkers to safety at a huge cost to their own lives. And I think that these stories of bravery should really inspire us.
And they call themselves the Claw. You know, like in an arcade machine where the claw, and you'd go and you get to grab the soft toy and you bring it. They've called themselves the Claw. And it says, one of the women has said, it's not gentle. We have no time to comfort the children. We bundle them into the car, as many as possible, and we drive, avoiding the tanks. Makes me feel a bit emotional, actually.
It does. And one of the saddest things about the story is the children are clearly a bit older. Some of the older children are a bit tech savvy and are desperate to be rescued from these bunkers, and are sending these women now selfies and pictures of cats and drawings that they've made, asking these women to come and rescue them. I mean, it's
heartbreaking.
Amazing, isn't it?
We're down to 60 seconds, Kevin. Can we have a look at the FT and interest rates on top of inflation, which we know is expected to go up to about 8%, isn't it, in a couple of months?
It is, and again, this is the story that's going to have an impact on the lives of viewers and listeners. And basically, announcement yesterday by the Bank of England lifting rates by a further quarter point, and essentially, it's a bad news story. It's about more increases to the cost of living, record stratospheric increases in fuel, household bills, and one that's going to be very worrying and gloomy.
Is the Bank of England right to do this in terms of how it views the overall economy? I mean, it seems awful to us, but is this a necessary measure?
I believe so, and I face this not just as a person with a family, but as a business owner. I believe so, and I believe that inflation, which will in due course hit 8%, is not great, but they are trying to set economic conditions over the next 12, 24 months that make the best of very difficult circumstances. And it's free from politics now.
I mean, just briefly, Joanna, how do you, economically, how do you start to bring inflation under control?
Well, it's a question outside of my area of knowledge. I'm afraid it's a very, very big question. My instinct is that we have to produce more in this country. We have to generate more of our own power, more of our own electricity, get fracking, get North Sea oil back online, grow more produce, and the more we can actually be in control of producing things ourselves, and it seems logical to me that that's going to bring prices down.
Yeah. Oh, well, look, good to talk to you both for now, but we will catch up with you a little bit later on. Joanna Williams and Kevin Craig, thank you.
OK, it's time now for On Your Doorstep.
OK, let's talk to our Northern Ireland reporter, Doogie Beattie, who's in Newcastle, County Down, to talk to people about the issues that matter to them. Morning, Doogie.
Good morning and welcome to Newcastle. This is indeed where the mountains of Mourne sweep down to the sea. The sun is just kissing the sea as it rises, and this town has beautiful, fantastic memories for me as a child. It is a holiday town and it has had it rough over the last couple of years. So if you come with me now, we're going to go across and see one of the men who kept it all going during the pandemic and has always been here. Many's a time I've sat here with my family, had a cup of coffee and an ice cream, and not a better man to do that with. Charlie, how are you?
Very well, thanks. Very well, thanks.
And tell us, how have you been coping over this last couple of years with the pandemic?
Well, it's been a struggle. I would have to say it's been a struggle. When the pandemic first came around, we were stuck as to what we were going to do. So our initial reaction was we closed for the first few weeks, and then we came up with a plan of erecting this little canopy thing. And we basically went from being a 50-seater coffee shop to a coffee kiosk where people can just sit out, admire the view and have a coffee.
Tell us, the local news at the moment in and around Ukraine and all, what do you think of that, and what do you think locals think about it?
Well, we actually have ourselves, we have become, since the pandemic, very much a little hub in the community, and within the last 2 weeks, we started up an appeal, a Ukrainian appeal, which the response has been absolutely tremendous. We've already filled 1.5 containers, which are about to be shipped out to Poland, and we've raised just under £5,000 in cash. So the support from the local people has been immense. I mean, we're one of many stations locally that are trying to do their bit for Ukraine, and the response has been humbling, terribly humbling. We're also involved with the food bank here, and as I say, it transpires by chance that since we did what we did throughout the pandemic, and where we were only closed for about 4 weeks, we have become like a little hub in the community. So I'm very humbled at the response that the local community has given us. I mean, everyone is concerned as to what's ahead of us, really.
And how has the town itself been bouncing back? Yesterday was St Patrick's Day, and of course that's really the start of the holiday season, so we'll not know that much. But I mean, do you see a good season ahead for you?
I think it's I think, number one, I don't think COVID's gone away. The whole Ukrainian thing, I believe, will put people off travelling, and I would anticipate a good season for us. Yesterday the weather was like this. You've come on a very good day, as you can see, and I would imagine we are going to have a good season ahead. Yeah, I think there'll be an awful lot of people stay at home.
Well, there you go, and that is us from Newcastle this morning. Well, from this part of Newcastle, it is like any other seaside town in and around the north of England, Blackpool, etc. It is a great place to holiday, a great place to be, and I look forward to the rest of the day here.
I bet you do. You're going to get yourself a nice cup of coffee.
Coffee, ice cream. Actually, every year on my birthday, the children ask me what I want for my birthday, and I say, you know what? We'll go down to Newcastle, we'll have a cup of coffee, they'll have a nice ice cream, and my birthday's in October, so you can imagine I just have the coffee, I don't bother with the ice cream.
Oh, quite right. Doogie, we'll catch up with you a little bit later. Thank you.
Oh, it looks lovely, doesn't it?
It does. There's something about being by the seaside.
Oh, I just love it. It's my spiritual home. Honestly, I love being by the sea. OK, stay with us. We've got plenty more to come, including the latest from our reporter in Dover on those P&O redundancies. We're going to see you after this.
Good morning, I'm Alex Deakin with your latest weather from the Met Office. A cold one out there this morning, and for some a foggy start, but generally it's going to be a cracking day if you like spring sunshine. High pressure is with us, sitting pretty much slap bang across the UK, and it's going to stick around for the next couple of days, bringing plenty of blue skies with it. Having said that, as I said, it's quite grey for some this morning, parts of the Midlands, Wales, southern England. We've got some dense patches of fog. It will be clearing steadily through the morning, should be gone by late morning. And once it has gone, it's then pretty much sunny spells across the board. It is cold out there this morning, but the sun is pretty strong at this time of year. So it will lift the temperatures steadily, and by this afternoon, we're looking at temperatures well above average, widely into the teens, and we could reach 16, 17, maybe 18 Celsius inland. A little cooler in the far northwest, where the breeze will be picking up once more. And the breeze will pick up across southern parts through the evening as well. For most, though, it's a clear evening, but those temperatures will be falling away. It's going to be pretty cold if you're heading out this Friday evening. Not as cold as the night just gone, not as frosty, because there will be more of a breeze around. Temperatures mostly holding up in low single figures. But a chilly start to Saturday, and then it's another cracking day with plenty of sunshine. Shouldn't be as foggy first thing either. And as you can see, up and down the land, we're expecting blue skies during the day. Notice, however, the winds will be stronger, quite noticeable winds across southern England, South Wales, Northern Ireland and western parts of Scotland. So just be aware of that. That will make it feel a little cooler than these numbers would suggest. But look at that, maybe 16 in Glasgow, 16 Birmingham and London, 15 in Plymouth, well above average. Not quite as warm on Sunday. It will be a cloudier day for sure, and the easterly breeze picking up once more, maybe even bringing a few showers across East Anglia and the southeast, but dry and bright for many.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate.
From all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Demonstrations will be held today against P&O's decision to sack 800 staff.
Good morning. It is 6:59 on Friday, the 18th of March. This is Breakfast on GB News with Stephen and Bev.
We're live across the whole of the UK, of course, on your TV, on your radio and online. And here's what's making the news for you today.
Unions will seek legal advice to challenge the P&O Ferries sackings after the company blamed the decision on losses of £100 million following the pandemic. We're going to speak to Shadow Minister Jim McMahon as staff plan protests this afternoon.
All remaining COVID travel measures have been axed as of 4 o'clock this morning. The Department for Transport said a range of contingency measures would be kept in reserve so ministers could take swift and proportionate action in the face of potential new variants.
More than 150,000 people have signed up to house Ukrainian refugees. However, charities have raised concerns about safeguarding.
Security experts warn of high probability of Russian cyber attacks in the weeks ahead. We've got an exclusive report for you.
Quite understandably, the world's focus of late has been on the destructive power and human cost of Russia's conventional warfare. But experts warn we mustn't underestimate the power of Russia's cyber capabilities.
It comes as the Defence Secretary Ben Wallace and Home Secretary Priti Patel hit out at Russia's dirty tricks after he was targeted by an imposter pretending to be the Ukrainian Prime Minister.
We'd love to hear from you this morning. Of course, anything you want to talk about, just drop us an email, gbviews@gbnews.uk, or you can tweet us at gbnews. At 7:01, our main news today, and P&O Ferries has caused outrage by making 800 staff redundant, effective immediately, and cancelling all of its ferry services for the next few days. Staff will now be replaced with cheaper agency workers.
Crews were told in a video call that yesterday was their final day of employment. But some refused to leave their ships in protest and were forcibly removed by security.
Well, P&O said it was a tough decision, but it would not be a viable business without the changes. The government has called the workers' treatment wholly unacceptable.
And staff protests planned for 12 o'clock today. We'll be bringing you those throughout the day on GB News. And one of the most affected ports by this news is Dover, of course. The busiest P&O route is between Dover and Calais. Our Southeast reporter Ellie Costello is there for us. Good morning, Ellie. What's the mood like that down there this morning?
Good morning, Bev and Stephen. Well, the mood is shock, which was very quickly followed by anger yesterday. We saw scenes of cheap agency labour pulling up in minibuses yesterday afternoon, and as they were put onto those ships just behind me, British workers were escorted off. And later those sacked crew members and members of the RMT union were protesting in Dover. They actually blocked two of the main roads here with signs and banners. They were calling on P&O to reverse this decision to sack 800 of its staff members over Zoom, and we are expecting larger protests in Dover, Hull and in Liverpool today. Well, as you mentioned, this decision has been highly criticised by politicians and by the unions. I spoke to the National Secretary of the RMT union, Darren Proctor. This is what he told me.
The message to P&O is that you don't deserve to be around the UK coast, okay, and the government should, detain all the vessels around the UK, prevent them from sailing, prevent them from operating if this is the kind of employment practices that they're going to utilise. It's a dangerous precedent, not just for seafaring, not just for Dover, but for the whole of the UK. I think if P&O get away with this, what message does that send out to other employers, but also about the safety implications for sea, bringing people on board them vessels who don't know the vessels, don't know the waters, and not familiar with the vessels. The safety impact, it doesn't bear thinking about. We're considering all options at this moment in time. Legal action, obviously we're wanting to, get political support and also get public support, and I think the support that we've received today identifies that this is not welcome here. Okay, and then, it should be P&O that's going and not the employees and not the seafarers that have suffered as a consequence today.
Talk about.
Well, that's the National Secretary for the RMT union, Darren Proctor, speaking to me earlier. I'm now joined by travel expert Simon Calder. Good morning to you, Simon. Thank you so much for joining us on GB News. This is going to cause a huge amount of disruption here at Dover, isn't it?
Well, initially it's causing problems, but of course we're not yet into the Easter holidays, so there aren't too many families who are affected. Certainly yesterday, and I came down here once it became clear that there was something really serious going on, there was a great long line of trucks waiting to go into the docks. They are now flowing relatively smoothly, and of course just down the coast from here you've got the Channel Tunnel as well, but much more significantly you've got three giant ferries behind you, and are those going to be back in time for the Easter holidays? Well, nobody quite knows what's happening. As you've been reporting, we've had cheap agency staff brought back on. However, I don't think that P&O Ferries were expecting anything like the backlash they see right across the political spectrum. So I think somebody in Dubai, where the company is ultimately owned, came up with a plan to cut their losses, and it's gone, I think, very badly wrong. So talking to the fantastic crew yesterday, desperately upset, I think that they might actually be back on board. I very much hope so.
Well, let's hope so. It is a decision that's been highly criticised. A lot of people are asking, is it even legal what's happened here?
My understanding is that because the seafarers on those ships were employed on contracts based in Jersey, they're covered by international maritime law, which is nothing like as good in terms of workers' protection as normal British employment law. So I think the company has taken legal advice. I think they can get away with it legally, but I think the court of public opinion is going to mean that if they try this, then people are simply going to vote with their wallets and avoid P&O Ferries.
And what have P&O said in response? There has been talk of compensation, hasn't there, for the workers?
Yeah, they say we're going to be generous. We're going to give you 3 months cash in lieu of notice, and we're also going to give you 2.5 weeks' pay for each year that you have served. But this is much more than just a job. It's a lifestyle for the people on board those ships. And suddenly to be told on Zoom, by the way, this is your last day at work, utterly devastating.
And finally, Simon, for people who, it's a lovely sunny weekend, for people who've got ferries booked this weekend, what can they do?
If you're booked on Dover-Calais, then you'll just be travelling on DFDS. On the other links from Hull, from Liverpool, from Cairn Ryan to Larne, I'm afraid you've got to rebook on a different ferry company and then try and claim the money back.
Simon Calder, thank you very much for joining us this morning on GB News. Well, you heard there, Stephen and Bev, about the possibility of compensation, but for the workers who were up until yesterday working very, very hard on those ships behind me, that compensation will be nowhere near enough, and we will see many of them in protest in Dover later on today.
OK, Ellie, for now, thank you.
Thank you. OK, let's move back to Ukraine, where in the last few hours, the mayor of Lviv says several missiles have hit an aircraft maintenance plant near the city's airport. Well,
let's talk to Anna Vittig, who moved to the UK from Lviv sort of 15, 16 years ago. Morning to you. I know you've got family in the area. What have you been told about what's happened in Lviv overnight?
I mean, honestly, I was on my way here, as you know, as you invited me to come over here, and then I was just reading the news, and I just have this, that, you know, the missiles were going into my hometown. And then I had a phone call from my friend, that her friend called her and said that her cousin, basically grandma, she was running to her friend just to, you know, to get some comfort and shelter because, you know, the windows were shaking and, you know, it was a blast and the people could see fires from outside of their flats. It's unheard of. I mean, I know this area really well because, you know, my cosmetologist clinic is over there, and then, you know, it's Lviv, you know, it's not even Lviv area, it's Lviv. It doesn't matter, you know, where they're bombing in Ukraine, but it's way too close to home. It's like, it's next door.
We started this 3 weeks ago now, didn't we, Anna, with the notion that Putin wanted to come from the east and he was most interested in the eastern regions, the Donbass and Luhansk. And yet Lviv is far west, northwest corner of Ukraine.
It's close to EU, it's close to
very
Polish
close
border.
to Poland.
Yes.
So is that a surprise, do you think, even to the Ukrainian people?
I mean, surprise is that he came in so far.
Yeah.
I mean, Mariupol, Kiev, Sumy, and all the other small cities, Irpin, and then, you know, people are suffering. Look what's happened to people in Mariupol. And then until you guys decide to shut down our sky and NATO gives us protection, Putin's going to come next to Poland, and then it's going to be Latvia, it's going to be Lithuania, it's going to be Estonia, it's going to be back to USSR. I mean, it has to stop. Because, you know, a few days ago, it was a military base close to Polish border. What happened this morning?
Yeah.
What do you do in terms of, I mean, I know you've been trying to get family out and you've been to Poland trying to get family out. We can't imagine what it's like for people having to leave their homes and cross into another country, not knowing what the future holds. It must be an absolutely awful ordeal.
Believe me, we have no idea over here. Even, you know, I'm Ukrainian. I talk to my family on a daily basis. I flew to Gdansk on Saturday because my family is staying not far from Gdansk. I mean, my sister-in-law and the 3 kids, and then the rest of the family is in Lviv and the other places in Ukraine. So when I flew there, I was staying on a train station. You know, I've seen all these families, and, you know, you look in their eyes, there is no hope whatsoever. They come with the small belongings, they keep their pets with them, and then it's just, it's devastating. And then I took a train from there to Warsaw, and I stayed a few days in Warsaw, you know, to organize all the biometrics and everything else. I mean, people, Home Office has been really helpful. You know, there are some people who speak Ukrainian because most of people who go there to get visa, they don't speak any English whatsoever. So I've been trying to help as much as I can during that Monday appointment we had. But all in all, and then, you know, we went to a train station again. And train station in Warsaw is so many shelters, is so many people, so many families. Trains are overbooked, and, you know, and Polish people are helping us a lot. But when you look around and you see all these young kids and, you know, and just women, and then they don't know where to go and what to do. I mean, it's devastating.
I know this. We keep hearing this time and time again from all the Ukrainian people that we talk to. Close the skies.
Yeah.
Is there any sense that Ukrainian people understand what is stopping the West from doing that? I guess it's a futile question.
Yeah, but then the West has to ask itself a question. How many more people in Ukraine needs to die so you decide to close the sky? In Mariupol, officially, it's more than 2,000 people dead, and they all go in, they can't even bury them properly. They just put them, just in the ground, in a group. They're saying it's more than 2,000. I think it's more than 20,000, because we never know how many, people dead. And then, what happened to the theater?
Yeah.
And then, they put a sign, Дети, which is kids.
Children.
Children,
so that Russia wouldn't bomb, to say there are children inside this.
And what they did, they bombed it on purpose. So how many more kids and how many more women, pregnant women, needs to die? How many more elderly, how many more civilians needs to die before NATO decided to close the sky? I mean, you guys, you think like everyone here is on the protective side, but okay, the missiles, they can fly really far. Like, look what happened in Lviv. Few days ago, what happened today? Missile can fly really, really far. So next on the list is going to be what? Poland, and then it's going to be Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia. So when you're going to step in, what do you think?
I mean, there is the concern, of course, and it's no comfort to you and to the people in Ukraine. But the concern is, if NATO did that, then that would trigger further action. It would make the situation worse.
Okay, so explain to me why Ukraine given up on the nuclear weapons and why we signed this Budapest memorandum that nobody follows. So the memorandum was involved US, UK, Russia and Ukraine. So if one is invading us, so the other needs to protect, needs to step in. I mean, we appreciate all the humanitarian help. We appreciate all the support we get from the UK. We appreciate all the support we get from US, but it still doesn't stop Putin bombing us.
How do you think Zelensky is doing?
I mean, I'm really proud, and I'm overwhelmed with the amount of stress that he's dealing. He didn't ditch us. He's looking after his country and he's protecting us at its best, honestly.
I can't imagine what you're going through, because as difficult and awful as it must be to be there and to be in Ukraine at the moment, it must be very difficult to be away from it and watching it from a distance.
Yeah, it's very difficult. To be honest, when everything happened on the 24th, I woke up and I said to my mom, I feel like traitor, because, also I've been living here for such a long time, and I was in Lviv until January 18th, because I had a fracture, I had to fly there and do some treatments. So I was flying back on the 18th, and I said to my husband, if I don't start walking, I will stay there on until 25th, because there's no point to come back to London. And then I started walking, so I got back. And then, I'm thinking I would be in a better position, believe it or not, if I was there with my family. It's just devastating. I can't do anything. I can bring them over here, but imagine, people have their life.
Do they want to come here?
I mean, no, not really. Not really. They don't want to go anywhere.
What concessions, Anna, do you think Ukraine should make to Putin? If it was up to you, what would you say Zelensky should do today?
I mean, there is no way of making peace with Russia, and no agreement with Russia is worth the paper it's written on. It's just a waste of time for everyone. Ukraine needs to win this war, simple as that. If we are not winning, that's it. There is no more Ukraine, there is no more Europe, there is no more EU, there is no more peace in the world.
But what does that look like? Does that look like just Russia just withdrawing and just saying, we tried and we lost? Like, what does that look like?
It will look like that we have to kill more Russian people invading Ukraine. That's it. I mean, unfortunately, that's the truth, because look, they don't care. They're all lying all over Russian news. And I've been contacted by somebody. I went to college in London, and she says to me, why are you putting all this hate towards Russian people? I said, whoever is invading my homeland, it's my enemy number one. And she said, you're all Nazis. I said, we're not Nazis. So somebody who lives in London for so many years, they're all brainwashed, and they think that Ukrainian people are Nazis because it's okay to love your homeland and to protect your homeland.
Thankfully, though, that's not the majority view. What do you think of how the British people, the British government, the Parliament have reacted? I mean, do you feel supported as a Ukrainian in the UK?
I mean, I feel much better support as to what it was in 2014. But nevertheless, if the British government and the rest of the world will step in, would step in 2014, we wouldn't be in a situation we are in now. Simple as that.
Yeah.
Sometimes being concerned doesn't mean anything. Sometimes you just need to have real actions. And real actions, we need to close the sky, because otherwise it's going to be a natural disaster, it's going to be nuclear disaster, and no world will exist.
Okay. Look, Anna Vittig, we really appreciate your time today. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks.
Slava Ukraini.
Yeah,
Героям слава.
Indeed. Absolutely. I think everyone would salute that. Look, let's talk to the Shadow Secretary of State for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, Jim McMahon, who joins us now. Good to see you this morning. And look, I know we want to talk about P&O and all that situation in a second, but I mean, listening to what Anna Vittig here was saying, and this call again for NATO to close the skies, you can understand the absolute desperation, can't you? Isn't there a sense that NATO needs to do more?
Completely understand the frustrations, but also just the hurt that the people of Ukraine are going through. What the UK and our allies need to do is to make sure that we de-escalate what has been a horrendous conflict. We can't afford to see bodies being carried out of community buildings, children being killed, and civilians being targeted in such a callous way. Now, the best way to achieve that, of course, is through negotiation and diplomacy and trying to reach an agreement, but that might not be possible. So what can the UK do? We can make sure that the Ukrainians have the arms to defend themselves. We can make sure that they have the humanitarian support that's needed to make sure that people get the support and safe passage. And frankly, we can do far more here in the UK as a Home Office to make sure that we have safe passage to come here to get a place to live away from that danger.
I mean, the problem is with this, it's all about end games, isn't it? I mean, we talked about this, or all the previous conflicts we've been involved in. It's very difficult to see the end game here from Putin's perspective. He, as Anna Vittig was saying, he's not someone who's going to agree to some sort of deal in all of this. He seems to be someone who just wants to win whatever it takes. So it's very difficult to see how this actually comes to an end.
I agree completely that we are in very desperate times and very worrying times, and none of us look at the TV every morning to see the devastation that's being caused, where civilian areas are being targeted in the way that they are, and people are being killed in the way that they are. People are fleeing their homeland in a way that they never thought would happen in their lifetime on the European continent. So this is a real issue, and of course we want to do our utmost to make sure that we play our part in an international level to give the Ukrainians the support they need. That is about arms to make sure that they can defend themselves, but also the humanitarian support. What we can't afford to do, though, and this is where we do support the government, is to escalate it into what would eventually be a world war. And if we had a no-fly zone there that was ultimately enforced, then that would almost certainly lead to a greater conflict when we need to de-escalate it.
OK, Jim, just to bring you to matters a little closer to home, obviously the P&O situation has been shocked everybody, whether you're an employer or an employee. It seems to have really impacted on a lot of people. P&O got £10 million to furlough their employees last year. Do you think the taxpayer should ask for that back?
I just think the way that P&O have behaved is a national disgrace. It's an absolute scandal that 800 people were told that they would be sacked on the same day by a video call. But P&O have got form. This is the company that reflagged away from Britain to Cyprus after the EU referendum. This is the same company that took millions in furlough only to make 1,100 people redundant, at the same time paying over £200 million in shareholder dividends. And it's the same company today that are making £1 billion in profit and saying that they need now to make these 800 hard workers redundant. These are 800 people who have bills to pay, who have families to support, who have whole communities who depend on that industry. And frankly, it's a national scandal that it's been allowed to happen on the government's watch.
I mean, justify that for us, would you, Jim? I mean, the government is the government. They're in charge at the moment, but they're condemning this every bit as strongly as you are.
It's not good enough just to condemn it if you're in government. You're there to show leadership and to take action. We've asked the government to convene a meeting of the workers, the trade unions and the employer to try and negotiate a way through. We've asked the government to get legal advice to find out whether it was even lawful to make these people redundant in the way that we saw on TV. We've asked the government to review the furlough support that was given to see if that can be clawed back. There are steps the government can take, but frankly, just standing at the dispatch box and complaining is not government.
Well, the problem seems to be, in talking to Simon Calder, who you'll be familiar with, no doubt, as everybody is, he says it looks like a lot of these people were on contracts based in Jersey, so they're covered by maritime law and not UK law when it comes to this.
Yeah, the treatment of seafarers who are kind of UK citizens is an issue, and it's been a long-standing problem that, depending on where the ship is flagged, depending on when the company is registered, that does diminish workers' rights here in the UK. But listen, I'm not an employment expert. We need to make sure that the government take leadership. They convene a meeting to see if there is a way through it, but also to make sure that if there is a route to challenge this decision, then that route is taken with the support of our government.
Jim, what would Labour do to make sure that this kind of thing couldn't happen again in the future?
Well, fundamentally, this is about workers' rights and the ability of working people here in the UK to earn a decent living and have security, prosperity and respect. And that isn't what people feel at the moment. They feel as though they're being exploited. They feel as though there's a race to the bottom. And although this is an extreme example, it's not the only example of that taking place. So we need to make sure that we toughen up our employment laws here in the UK. That if you are a UK citizen working here and your base is here, then you are deserve better terms and conditions and better rights than if your company is offshored or flagged elsewhere. It's
a PR disaster for P&O, isn't it? Even if they reversed this decision and employed everyone back, it's a huge blow to the company, which presumably is going to have longer term impacts.
Well, it will do, but also, we are in a cost of living crisis made in Downing Street, and, I don't think it's a surprise that they have chosen this moment to make this intervention. They know that if containers don't come into the country and goods don't come into the country, that will have a knock-on effect on the cost of shipping. It'll have a knock-on effect on the cost of living and supply chains, and they are choosing this moment now, I believe, to really force the hand of our government. Now, the government needs to choose which side they're on. Are they on the side of P&O? They're exploiting their workers and exploiting the goodwill of the British people. Ultimately, at this point, you've got to make your choice.
It's a cost of living crisis forged by the government. This cost of living crisis is global.
Well, it's the UK government that are deciding to hike up national insurance contributions. It's the UK government that have decided to freeze the personal tax allowance. It's the UK government that have decided to take away the universal credit uplift. It's the UK government that are requiring our councils to push up council tax. That's all UK government, and the government could make a decision today to change those. The other thing the government could do is to follow Labour's plan for a windfall tax on the oil and gas giants to put that money back into the pockets of hard-working people. But so far, they've refused.
But would a Labour government or a Labour Party, Labour opposition, support the government if it said, look, we're going to cut the 25% green levy for a period of time, we're going to seriously look at lifting that moratorium on fracking? Would a Labour Party, a Labour front bench support that?
I'm sick to death of the government not having a plan, not having the investment that's required over quite a long period, and then looking for a race to the bottom when it all goes wrong. And we cannot allow that to happen on the climate emergency and the cost of living crisis that we see, because the two are linked. If we don't invest in renewables, if we don't invest in new nuclear, then we will always be dependent on foreign interests on oil and gas, and that just is not sustainable. So now is not the time to roll back on renewables and our green revolution. Now is the time for the government actually to step up and do what Labour would do, which is £28 billion every year until the end of the Parliament to invest in a green revolution. Those are decent, well-paid, secure, working-class jobs that would also help our energy crisis.
Yeah, but forgive me, just one last point on this. You can understand lots of people watching right now and listening right now saying, well, look, 25% of our energy bills would be a huge immediate difference. We need something that's going to happen right now.
Which is why we've called for that windfall tax. Listen, if the government did the right thing, which is to say to the likes of BP and Shell, who have made tens of billions of pounds of profit, it's time to put your hand in your pocket and support households, then that would see households up to £600 a year better off, far more than the government are offering, and a material benefit to hard-working people.
Jim McMahon,
Right.
Appreciate your time today.
Thanks,
Thank you.
OK, stay with us. We've got plenty more to come this morning, including the latest sports headlines with sports broadcaster Paul Coit.
Good morning, I'm Alex Deakin with your latest weather from the Met Office. A cold one out there this morning, and for some a foggy start, but generally it's going to be a cracking day if you like spring sunshine. High pressure is with us, sitting pretty much slap bang across the UK, and it's going to stick around for the next couple of days, bringing plenty of blue skies with it. Having said that, as I said, it's quite grey for some this morning, parts of the Midlands, Wales, southern England. We've got some dense patches of fog. It will be clearing steadily through the morning, should be gone by late morning. And once it has gone, it's then pretty much sunny spells across the board. It is cold out there this morning, but the sun is pretty strong at this time of year. So it will lift the temperatures steadily, and by this afternoon, we're looking at temperatures well above average, widely into the teens, and we could reach 16, 17, maybe 18 Celsius inland. A little cooler in the far northwest, where the breeze will be picking up once more. And the breeze will pick up across southern parts through the evening as well. For most, though, it's a clear evening, but those temperatures will be falling away. It's going to be pretty cold if you're heading out this Friday evening. Not as cold as the night just gone, not as frosty, because there will be more of a breeze around. Temperatures mostly holding up in low single figures. But a chilly start to Saturday, and then it's another cracking day with plenty of sunshine. Shouldn't be as foggy first thing either. And as you can see, up and down the land, we're expecting blue skies during the day. Notice, however, the winds will be stronger, quite noticeable winds across southern England, South Wales, Northern Ireland and western parts of Scotland. So just be aware of that. That will make it feel a little cooler than these numbers would suggest. But look at that, maybe 16 in Glasgow, 16 Birmingham and London, 15 in Plymouth, well above average. Not quite as warm on Sunday. It will be a cloudier day for sure, and the easterly breeze picking up once more, maybe even bringing a few showers across East Anglia and the southeast, but dry and bright for many.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Oh, it is bang on the nose, 7:30. Good morning. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Bev, live across the UK on your TV and on your radio.
Time for a look at the biggest sporting stories now with broadcaster Paul Coit. Good morning, Paul.
Morning.
It's nearly the weekend.
It is nearly the weekend, but it's so busy. There's so much going on Whereas today, really, it's the final day of Cheltenham. It's the Gold Cup day. This is the big event. I mean, everybody's going to Cheltenham. I feel like I'm the only person that didn't go.
No,
I've not been.
Me and Stephen weren't invited. No, Eamon was there. Isabel was there. Everybody from GB News has been at Cheltenham races this week.
I know.
Have you been there?
No, I haven't been there either.
Those two, anyway. Because there's a camera involved, you see. There's a camera there, so they popped up. There you go.
Is that what it was?
Yeah. No, I mean, sorry, but
OK Magazine would be lost without them, wouldn't it, these days, really?
You've not done very well with the old tips, I'm afraid, Paul.
Oh, no, you start as well. That's just unfair to hit me with straight away. It was the first day. I had one bad day. The tips weren't very good. The second day, 2 out of 3, and one of them was a non-runner. We had a winner yesterday, and today I have a treble. Which could well make you a millionaire.
Oh, go on, then. Go on.
So this is what I've been given.
You writing this down?
I am, yeah, millionaire.
He's got his gold pen out.
See, the thing is, when everybody writes it down, then it usually comes back to me and going, well, you're going to give me the money back? This was a disaster. Right, so I've got the, now, where are we? This is an each-way treble.
Oh,
They're in on this as well.
I don't really even understand what that means.
I know it's a fool's way, but it is Cheltenham.
I'm writing this down.
1:30 is Pied Piper.
OK.
So that's the 1:30. The 3:30 is Galvin. It really worries me and unnerves me, honestly. You're both writing this down. Yeah. 3:30 Galvin, that's in the Gold Cup.
Right.
And then the 4:10 is a horse called Bob & Co. Okay. So this is what I've been given. Each way, worth a treble, put them all on. And let's see how we go.
Right.
And then I won't see you till next week after that.
No, you
Hopefully you would have forgotten about how things went by the time we get to next week.
No, I won't be putting a lot on.
No.
That's for sure. Oh, well, interesting. So Galvin for the Gold Cup.
Yes, I think so. See, the Gold Cup is...
He's Irish, isn't he?
It's the big one. Yes, Galvin is. Yeah, leading Irish challenger. There's Album Photo. There's A+ Tard, which Rachel Blackmore, who's pretty much the queen of Cheltenham, she's going to be riding that. And Manila Indo, who won it last year. So it is the big one. And if you put 1p on this, there's a good chance you might make yourself 10 pence by the end of the day.
Hey!
So let's see how things go.
That's money for you. It's money for you.
It's all about.
Every penny counts.
Exactly. It's not about standing in front of the photographers there and looking good. It's all about the horses.
Or the money.
Oh, no, I'd be there for the champagne and a lovely lunch, I can't lie. It'd be great, wouldn't it? I could do with a day out. It's been ages since I've done something like that.
I'm going to get the tickets sorted and then we'll be there for next year.
OK.
So, yeah.
That'd be good.
Football. Everton did all right.
Everton did very well. Everton, it's been a really worrying time for Everton because they're flirting with relegation. Frank Lampard, who's going in as the manager, but they beat Newcastle 1-0. 7th minute of extra time, because I don't know if you saw the guy, I don't want to make a big deal about it, but the guy that actually chained himself to the post. And so, there's some that could have said maybe you could just play on.
I didn't see this. What was he doing?
Well, it was a protest. There we are. It's an anti-oil protest. There he is, and then he's gone straight to the post. And then he's used one of those plastic tie things to tie himself on.
Made from oil.
That's it. Straight. Ironically, I believe it probably is.
Yes.
Ironically,
that's what plastic is made from.
Zip
oil.
tie, yeah.
Probably is. Maybe you should let him know. So I don't know whether he could been involved in the game. He could have played, but then if he would have been offside for the whole thing.
Not with that hairstyle.
Anyway. I know it's not really a good look, is it? So I don't know whether his mum's going to be very unhappy with him. But anyway, good win for Everton. Yeah. So they beat Newcastle 1-0. And in the Europa League, a huge win for West Ham. I know you.
Who we call
the Hammers.
The Hammers.
The Hammers.
Thank
yeah,
you.
we mentioned that last time. So honestly, you're almost like a football hooligan the way you did that. It was quite intimidating.
Thank you.
So anyway, West Ham they managed to beat Sevilla 2-0. So Seville they were 1-0 up in the first leg, and Seville are a huge team when it comes to the Europa League. They've won it 6 times. It's a great scout for West Ham, and it's the best they've probably done in Europe. I think we're looking at over 40 years now. So
and
very, very good.
F1 story at the moment. Today?
F1 is Bahrain, yeah, that gets underway on Sunday. So that's back going again. So we're all very excited about that. We've got the Six Nations as well. England are playing France. France, huge favourites, and France are running away. They're probably the best side in the world at the moment. England playing within themselves, which is a phrase that I use every now and again, but they just don't look as if the shackles are on. They played better when they had a sending off after just a few minutes last week. So if they can play like they did with 14, with 15, you never know, they may give France a go.
You never know.
You never know in sport.
That would be good for the spirit.
Apart from those 3 horses that I give you, you never know what's going to happen.
Pied Piper, Galvin and Bob & Co.
There you go. Good luck.
There you go.
Very best of luck.
Good stuff, Paul. Thank you.
Pleasure.
OK, stay with us. We're going to be going through the papers in just a moment with Joanna Williams and Kevin Craig.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
You come back a little bit too early, actually, at 7:37, because I'm just online trying to put those bets on.
We don't know how to do it. We don't know how to do it.
I'm getting there.
Bet you know. I knew you'd say that.
I've got logged in, so anyway, you never know, I might be a millionaire this time tomorrow.
That would be nice.
It'd be lovely, that, wouldn't it? Anyway, you're watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Bev. If you've put your bets on, let us know. GBviews at gbnews.uk. We're on your TV and radio right across the UK.
OK, let's take a look at today's front pages now.
Western intelligence officials think Putin may abandon his plan to send troops to fight in Kiev because of fierce resistance and supply problems. That's in the Eye today.
The Guardian's top line reads, "Nations unite to condemn Putin over war crimes." The paper also claims that France believes Vladimir Putin is only pretending to be interested in negotiating a peace deal.
The Times is saying that Ukraine is taking the fight to Putin as it's now counter-attacking stalled Russian positions. This as invaders are thought to have lost at least 7,000 troops and 230 tanks.
Mutiny on the P&O Ferries, says the Mail. The ferry company was in crisis, of course, last night with staff in open revolt. In shocking scenes, distraught crew members staged sit-ins on their ferries and they were hauled off by thug security teams, some wearing balaclavas and carrying handcuffs.
Russia has targeted the Home Secretary and the Defence Secretary with fake video calls as imposters posed as the Ukrainian Prime Minister. That's in the Telegraph today.
And what a bunch of anchors, says The Sun, as a furious backlash ensued yesterday. Boris Johnson's spokesman said the job cuts at P&O were wholly unacceptable.
And the Daily Star has up Ship Creek, as it describes P&O bosses as scumbags for the way they sacked 800 staff yesterday. The ferry company plans to replace the Brits with cheap overseas staff, according to the paper.
OK, let's go through the papers now. Joining us is author and academic Joanna Williams and Labour councillor Kevin Craig. Who are we starting with?
Starting with Kevin and these fake video calls, Kevin, in the Telegraph.
Yes, front page of the Telegraph, and a story about prank calls, which may resonate with you two as anchors of the nice sort, not the sort in that front page there. But this prank, really, obviously part of Russia's fake cyber war around Ukraine. And what's happened, as you both just said, is that the two members of the cabinet were targeted by fake calls, and the Secretary of State for Defence, Ben Wallace, says on the front page of the Telegraph that he's ordered an inquiry into the video call, which he said had been, in quotes, properly set up, quotes, through a request to a government department via an email in the name of an aide at the Ukrainian embassy. Now, we know that all sides, the communications war, the propaganda war is crucial in this. So in the last 24 hours, incredible video from Arnold Schwarzenegger, which I encourage listeners and viewers to find. There was a fake surrender video done of President Zelensky. But really, one has to say somebody somewhere in the system is not quite doing their job if our Secretary of State ends up speaking to somebody impersonating the Prime Minister of Ukraine. And that really is not good enough.
It's just bizarre. It's such a bizarre story, isn't it?
It really is, but I think you're absolutely right, Kevin. It does suggest a real kind of naivety or amateurish, dare I say it, at the heart of government, which should deeply disturb us. And I think we've almost got used to peace, if you like, in Europe for such a long time that we've never been pushed into these very serious situations. And now we find we're really being tested. And
but if it goes through all the right channels, which it appears to have done, so there's been some serious fraudsterish going on.
Well, I'm so sorry to interrupt you, Stephen, but the detail is here. Via an email in the name of an aide at the embassy. What's happening, right, is there is out there, it happened to our business recently, hackers get into a system, they then assume the actual identity and the email. It looks genuine, right? Our government, like business, you can't rely on, that's a genuine email from Stephen Dixon asking to put 50 quid on the 3:30 at Cheltenham. You have to check.
50 quid? You've got to be joking.
Wow.
Yeah, but you've got to start believing something, haven't you? I mean, this is the whole point of why hackers do what they do, to make it look genuine.
Yes, but this is government, the Secretary of State for Defence, it's the Home Secretary. Come on, guys.
Strange, is it? So they weren't trying to be Zelensky, they were trying to be the Ukrainian Prime Minister, Denis Shmyhal.
Yeah. They banked on the assumption
that they may not know exactly what he looked like, that they may not know exactly what he spoke like, and that he could just wing it as an impersonator.
I know, but you see, Bev, this is what our Secretary of State says here. It was like on my mobile phone for a Teams call, says Ben Wallace. It appeared, and he looked like him, because I'd looked at the photograph and he had the Ukrainian flag behind him. That's all right then.
Well, yeah. Yeah, well,
you can't justify it, can you, Stephen?
Well, I'm not trying to justify it. I just think if it could happen to any of us.
Have you ever been pranked in your career?
No. But never say never. I don't know. I just think it's a bit harsh to have a go at the government over it, is what I'm thinking.
No, it's not. No. Get sharp. Serious stuff going on. Come on, Stephen.
The siege of Kiev, Joanna, in the eye. Look, Putin has not achieved what he wanted to achieve here, not by a long shot in terms of the land war.
Absolutely. I mean, the very fact that this is day 22 now of the conflict, I mean, most people seem to assume that Putin thought he would be able to essentially walk into Ukraine and be greeted as a kind of, given this hero's welcome almost. And, a lot of very defeatist people have been saying since the beginning of this that, of course, Ukraine won't win. They can't possibly win. And I have to confess, even I fell for that a little bit, and you think,
you look at the numbers, don't you?
Exactly. You think there's no way Ukraine's going to come out of this, and people have been kind of pushing them almost into negotiating some kind of dodgy deal, which again wouldn't be a real kind of peace. It would just put an end to the conflict, and I can understand why that's tempting. But I think we're really seeing some signs now of just how solid that Ukrainian resistance is, and I think perhaps, just perhaps, if there's a glimmer of hope, it might be that the penny's now beginning to drop with Putin.
George emailed in this morning to you, George, who says the inability of the vastly superior Russian force to subdue Ukraine proves the old adage, it's not the size of the dog in the fight that matters, but the size of the fight in the dog.
100%. I mean, Ukraine's really showing us this day after day. And, you know, we can only look on with respect and awe, I think, absolute awe. But I think with each passing day, it becomes so much more imperative that they are successful now, that they do win, because there's not going to be a peace.
But what does win mean?
Well, drive the Russians out, I would say. Get all the invading troops out and get back to being a sovereign, democratic country again.
But that's not winning necessarily, is it, as far as Putin's concerned? I mean, this is the worry.
Not as far as Putin's concerned.
What's Putin? Because if Putin is forced to withdraw with egg on his face, well, he's not a man who's going to like that.
No, and I can't see that happening, Stephen. I think overnight, you know, there were the big messages coming out of Turkey about the possibility of some negotiated settlement, and 4 out of the 6 demands are doable. But then you get into the still remaining unresolved questions about ceding territory to Russia permanently, which is a tough ask for a country that is losing people. You know, we've heard and seen this morning incredible testimony on this programme from a Ukrainian citizen, and Zelensky is going to be very reluctant at any stage to concede something that devalues the sacrifices of those who've lost their lives.
There's the reality of it, and then there's the principles at stake, isn't there? Particularly for Zelensky and the Ukrainian people, that they want to be Western, they want to be European, they don't want to be dragged to be part of Russia, and that principle is very strong to them.
It is very strong to them, Bev, and they are already they're showing they're prepared to compromise by saying, which they shouldn't have to do, by the way, well, we agree not to go into NATO in the coming years. Why should they have to give that up?
I thought that was quite a remarkable concession to make at this stage.
It is, and so they're willing to compromise, and we just have to... There are different messages across all the front pages today about the likelihood of a ceasefire, but let's hope we get there.
Yeah.
Look, just have we got time for another one? Somebody tell me. Yes, we have. Can we have a look at fuel duty in the Sun, Joanna? Because, I mean, certainly the price of filling up my car has gone up 30p a litre in the last couple of weeks.
Wow. Absolutely ridiculous. I'm very, very lucky. I tend to travel by train into London for work, or I'm able to walk to where I want to go in Canterbury. But a lot of people actually need a car to get to work, particularly care workers, for example, who are travelling from home to home, and they're having to pay those costs out of their own pocket. So that's like an extra tax. Essentially, it's an even bigger pay cut than they're getting because of inflation and tax increases. And yeah, it's 50 Tory MPs are now calling on the government to cut fuel duty. In a way, I'm a bit kind of gobsmacked that it's down to the Tory MPs doing it. Why aren't the Labour Party up in arms saying, look, we've got to cut fuel duty?
They've been doing that for ages. It just happens that one article, I mean, Labour's been on at the government for so long
not to cut fuel duty, not to knock these environmental levies, these green taxes on the head. The Labour Party's talked about cutting VAT, which is just 5% of heating bills. A much bigger proportion is environmental levies, and the Labour Party is very happy for those to stay in place.
Well, the Labour Party and many others, in fact, care about the future of the planet. And I think I heard you earlier, it was a bit early in the morning, but I think you were saying that, it's time to bring back fracking. And I think that in dealing with the energy crisis, we have to be quite careful about going back on things that 8 weeks ago were considered totally unacceptable.
Well, actually, I was very much in favour of fracking 8 weeks ago, and I would have argued for ditching environmental levies on fuel taxes 8 weeks ago as well.
You're not worried about the planet warming?
Actually, I think people are going to die because of cold, because of poverty, and to me, that's an immediate. This winter, when fuel prices are rocketing and people are freezing cold in their homes, people will die. I care about the planet. I would love net zero, but that's an aim for the future. It's not going to prevent people from dying of cold this winter.
We'll come back to that, I reckon.
Okay. Oh, well, I think we probably will over the next 20 or 30 years. There you go. Joanna Williams, Kevin Craig, good to see you both this morning. Thank you. Let's return to the Ukraine situation. And more humanitarian corridors are expected to open in Ukraine later today, allowing people to escape some of the worst-hit areas.
Our news reporter, Rosie Wright, is at Budapest Nyugati station in Hungary, which has seen an influx of refugees in recent days. Good morning, Rosie. What's the latest where you are?
Good morning to you both. Yes, hundreds of people from Ukraine are coming direct to Budapest. At this station, you can get trains direct to Poland, to the Czech Republic, to Germany, but also trains are arriving here direct from Ukraine too, from Lviv, from Kyiv. Hundreds of people making that journey are then greeted when they get to this station by tons of volunteers. We're going to talk to one very briefly, but this behind me is sort of an accommodation centre where you can be put up for free while you either decide to stay in Hungary or move elsewhere. Then these buses over here, it's quite hard to see, but they've got little coffee cups on them. These are places where if you arrive overnight, you can then get warm and stay on the bus until the accommodation centre opens in the morning, and you can then find somewhere to stay. Let's go over to this food centre here. The volunteers have been working 24/7, so that if you're staying on the bus, you can get food, or earlier even, lots of Hungarian school children came over here with little bags of toiletries and colouring insets for then other Ukrainian children I've seen arrive this morning, pick up them and then take them onto the bus while they warm up and work out what their plans are. Edit is actually a Londoner, but originally from Hungary, who've come over to help. Just explain, this is a sort of a makeshift group of volunteers making sure that Ukrainians, when they arrive, they've got food, they've got toiletries.
Yeah, and some hot drink, coffee, tea, even blankets, because during the night or even now in the daytime it's really, really cold. So when they need to wait and just sit on the luggage, at least they have something to cover themselves. That's it.
It's really inspiring that you've come from London as a Hungarian just to try and help, really. What's motivated you to do it?
Well, I'm watching the news and I had to come. It was a really, really deep urge. I had to come. I had to help them. And also I know that the refugee crisis is quite, it's not very well handled in this country. It's not very well prepared, and I knew that they will need my help a little. It's not like that's so important, but it's just so many people.
I know that you guys are providing food 24/7. This is not sort of any organisation. You all just met each other online.
Yes, yeah, we communicate in Facebook groups, and if we run out of sandwiches or something, someone is just starting to make it at home and bring it here. And even some bakery, they support us. Whatever we can get from the volunteers, because everything is donation. There's nobody gives us like we're buying it or something. We buy from our own money.
Edith, thank you very much for speaking to us. And amazingly, when Edith asked her employer at home in London, Anne Summers, to say, can I take some unpaid leave because I'm going to come to Hungary and volunteer, they said, absolutely not. We're going to keep paying your wages because we think it's really important, the work that you're doing out here. I'm going to be here in Hungary today and then move over to the border tomorrow to find out more about the people who've had to make that journey, then uproot their lives to start again somewhere new.
OK, Rosie, thanks for now. Now it's time for On Your Doorstep.
So let's go to our Northern Ireland reporter, Dougie Beattie. He is in Newcastle, County Down, to talk to people about the issues that matter to them. Dougie, tell us more about where you are and why.
Well, welcome to Newcastle. This is Mornview Caravan Park, and look at this for a mobile home. This is amazing, absolutely outstanding. It has everything, every mod con of the day that you could ever want, and most of all, it has a view to absolutely die for. I mean, look at that, straight out onto this lovely balcony, and the mountains of Mourne are straight behind us. Now, one of the people that works on this site, and very lucky to be here, is Carrie Ann. Carrie Ann, tell us a little bit about the site here. What's surrounding us?
We have quite a lot. Over to the corner of your Royal County Down, the golf course and stuff, plenty of shops, restaurants, plenty of nightlife for all ages, from small to very old. Plenty to do, you know, and what's not to love? Look at that for a view, like, what's not to love?
Well, how has it been with you as you're coming out of pandemic? Of course, holidaying at home has been a big thing, but yeah, how has the initial stuff been?
The last 2 years have been tough, but you can see the buzz coming back into the park there from the last couple of days. Everybody's buzzing to get back early in the season. and everybody's just, do you know, when the kids are driving, or the parents are driving in, the kids are getting dropped off the gate, they're buzzing to get back as well as ourselves. You know, it's good to see the hype back in the park early on in the year. Very, very good.
And how has Newcastle as itself, commerce and so forth, started to come back to town? You obviously live here and you're lucky enough to see what goes on all year. What's really the feeling around the town?
It's absolutely buzzing. Do you know, you can't even get parked, it's buzzing. Everybody's flocking to Newcastle. I think even yesterday, that road never stopped. People just in for their ice creams, their coffees, their fish and chips, a bit of seaside, and buzzing, and it's good to have it. We've missed it.
Okay, it is great to see. We'll be talking to a couple of holiday makers in the next hour and look forward to hearing what they have to say. From Newcastle now, back to you.
Absolutely. Doogie, thank you very much indeed. And what a lovely weather it is to have a bit of a holiday as
Love
well.
a caravan.
Oh, you do, don't
I
you?
love a caravan.
There you go, you see. That's where we need to go. We've got a Newcastle County Down. Stay with us. We've got the latest coming up from P&O Ferries as staff plan a mass protest following those shock redundancies. First, let's have a look at the forecast for you.
Good morning, I'm Alex Deakin with your latest weather from the Met Office. A cold one out there this morning, and for some a foggy start, but generally it's going to be a cracking day if you like spring sunshine. High pressure is with us, sitting pretty much slap bang across the UK, and it's going to stick around for the next couple of days, bringing plenty of blue skies with it. Having said that, as I said, it's quite grey for some this morning, parts of the Midlands, Wales, southern England. We've got some dense patches of fog. It will be clearing steadily through the morning, should be gone by late morning. And once it has gone, it's then pretty much sunny spells across the board. It is cold out there this morning, but the sun is pretty strong at this time of year. So it will lift the temperatures steadily, and by this afternoon, we're looking at temperatures well above average, widely into the teens, and we could reach 16, 17, maybe 18 Celsius inland. A little cooler in the far northwest, where the breeze will be picking up once more. And the breeze will pick up across southern parts through the evening as well. For most, though, it's a clear evening, but those temperatures will be falling away. It's going to be pretty cold if you're heading out this Friday evening. Not as cold as the night just gone, not as frosty, because there will be more of a breeze around. Temperatures mostly holding up in low single figures. But a chilly start to Saturday, and then it's another cracking day with plenty of sunshine. Shouldn't be as foggy first thing either. And as you can see, up and down the land, we're expecting blue skies during the day. Notice, however, the winds will be stronger, quite noticeable winds across southern England, South Wales, Northern Ireland and western parts of Scotland. So just be aware of that. That will make it feel a little cooler than these numbers would suggest. But look at that, maybe 16 in Glasgow, 16 Birmingham and London, 15 in Plymouth, well above average. Not quite as warm on Sunday. It will be a cloudier day for sure, and the easterly breeze picking up once more, maybe even bringing a few showers across East Anglia and the southeast, but dry and bright for many.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows. Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Demonstrations will be held today against P&O's decision to sack 800 staff.
Good morning. It's 8 o'clock on Friday the 18th of March. This is Breakfast on GB News with Stephen and Bev.
We're live across the whole of the UK on your TV, on your radio and online. And this is what we've got for you today.
Unions will seek legal advice to challenge the P&O Ferries sackings after the company blamed the decision on losses of £100 million following the pandemic. We're going to be live from Dover with the latest.
All remaining COVID travel measures have been axed as of 4 o'clock this morning. The Department for Transport said a range of contingency measures would be kept in reserve so ministers could take swift and proportionate action in the face of potential new variants.
Smoke and explosions have been heard near an airport in the western city of Lviv this morning, with air raids ringing throughout the capital. We'll speak to President Zelensky's former spokesperson as it suggested that Russia has picked up their airstrikes again.
Also this morning, security experts warn of high probability of Russian cyber attacks in the weeks ahead. We have an exclusive report for you.
Quite understandably, the world's focus of late has been on the destructive power and human cost of Russia's conventional warfare. But experts warn we mustn't underestimate the power of Russia's cyber capabilities.
This comes as Defence Secretary Ben Wallace and Home Secretary Priti Patel hit out at Russian dirty tricks after they were targeted by an imposter pretending to be the Ukrainian Prime Minister.
As always, we love to hear from you. Anything you want to talk about today, plenty of views coming in on the P&O situation. You can drop us a line, gbviews@gbnews.uk, or tweet us at GBNews.
Now, of course, yesterday P&O Ferries caused outrage by making 800 of its staff redundant, effective immediately, and cancelling all of its ferry services for the next few days.
Well, staff will now be replaced with cheaper agency workers, and crew were told in a video call that yesterday was their final day of employment.
The message to P&O is that you don't deserve to be around the UK coast. Okay, and the government should, detain all the vessels around the UK, prevent them from sailing, prevent them from operating if this is the kind of employment practices that they're going to utilise. It's a dangerous precedent, not just for seafaring, not just for Dover, but for the whole of the UK. I think if P&O get away with this, what message does that send out to other employers? But also about the safety implications for sea, bringing people on board them vessels who don't know the vessels, don't know the waters, and not familiar with the vessels. The safety impact, it doesn't bear thinking about. We're considering all options at this moment in time. Legal action, obviously we're wanting to, get political support and also get public support, and I think the support that we've received today identifies that this is not welcome here. Okay, and then, it should be P&O that's going and not the employees and not the seafarers that have suffered as a consequence today.
No wonder there's so much anger surrounding all of this. P&O, for its part, have said it was a tough decision, but it would not be a viable business without the changes.
The government has called the workers' treatment wholly unacceptable, and a staff protest is planned for 12 p.m. today. Well, one of the most affected ports by this news is Dover. It's the busiest P&O route between Dover and Calais, of course. Our southeast reporter Ellie Costello is there for us. Good morning, Ellie. What's the reaction down in Dover to this news today?
Well, good morning, Stephen and Bev. And I've been speaking to people who've been working on those ships behind me for the past 20 years, some of them. They are absolutely devastated. They are shocked and angry. This wasn't just a job to them. This was a lifestyle. And yesterday we saw scenes of minibuses arriving at the car park to my left. Cheaper agency workers were brought onto those ships and British staff members were escorted off by security. There was a heavy police presence and security presence here yesterday. And then we saw those sacked crew members and members of the RMT union. You just heard from the National Secretary there, Darren Proctor. Well, they actually protested in Dover yesterday. They shut down 2 roads here. Huge support, though, from the lorries and the cars that were passing. They were beeping their horns in support of this protest, and they were all waving their banners and flags. They want P&O to reverse this decision, and we're going to see more mass protests in Dover, but also in Liverpool and Hull a little bit later on today.
It does beg a belief, Ellie, that this has happened in the way that it has. It was interesting when you were talking to Simon Calder last hour that he thinks this may in fact be legal.
Yes, I mean, that's the question that everybody's asking, isn't it, Stephen? Is this even legal? And it is tricky because the legal position with redundancy in the UK is if you're looking to fire more than 20 people, then the staff that are affected and their unions need to be put in a consultation period. Now, that doesn't appear to have happened here. It has been done with immediate effect, and that could put P&O in hot water. But speaking to Simon Calder earlier, the travel expert, he was explaining that the seafarers on these ships are actually on contracts that are based in Jersey, and therefore they are under international maritime law rather than British employment law, which often gives you better protection in terms of workers' rights. So what P&O have done is technically legal, but in the court of public opinion, this has not gone down well. And what I think we might see is people voting with their feet and not going with P&O Ferries. They'll be going with other providers instead.
Well, if the PR disaster isn't bad enough, Ellie, I think when people realise that P&O is owned by DP World, it's a Dubai-based company, which reported a £683 million profit last year and took £10 million of British taxpayers' money to furlough staff. How does a company come back from this sort of PR disaster? Because social media was all over, was covered yesterday and today with people saying, I'm never booking again with P&O if they treat their employees like this.
Bev, you're completely right. This decision has hugely affected the reputation of this business. And I don't think P&O or DP World, the parent company based in Dubai, I don't think they ever expected this kind of backlash. Just like many other travel companies, they have been absolutely decimated by the pandemic, and they probably thought they could cut their losses here by getting rid of expensive British staff. But they weren't expecting this kind of backlash from politicians and from the unions, and there is hope here that if they keep up the pressure, then those workers will be able to get back on those ships. Fingers crossed.
OK. Ellie, thanks very much indeed. Let's bring you up to date at 8:08 with the latest headlines this morning.
The mayor of Lviv has said several Russian missiles have struck an airplane maintenance plant, destroying its building. There are no casualties. Earlier, TV station Ukraine 24 reported at least 3 explosions had been heard in Ukraine's western city.
Travel is back to normal. From today, all remaining COVID travel restrictions like pre-travel testing and those locator forms have been axed. It comes as coronavirus infections continue to rise in all 4 nations for the first time since January. Transport Secretary Grant Shapps says lifting the requirements would allow greater freedom in time for Easter.
Over 150,000 people in the UK have registered interest as the Homes for Ukraine scheme launches today. The programme aims to match refugees with people, charities and other companies who can provide a place to stay for at least 6 months. It will enable Ukrainians with no family ties in Britain to enter the country. But it does come amid concerns about how it will work in practice.
More than 1,400 people have been arrested in a week as part of a nationwide crackdown on county lines drug gangs. £4.25 million of Class A and B substances were seized during the operation, which took place across England and Wales.
Unions are urging the government to reverse its decision to suspend the state's pension triple lock. The TUC says April's 3.1% increase compared to 8.3% under the triple lock formula will cost pensioners almost £500 a year.
Lloyds Bank has warned that people aged 18 to 24 are most likely to be scammed. Victims aged under 25 now account for a quarter of reported investment scams, with victims risking losing almost £9,000 on average.
A new study shows that nearly 9 in 10 teachers say they have received inadequate training to support deaf pupils. The National Deaf Children's Society research revealed shocking shortfalls in teacher training.
And the Duchess of Cornwall has been made Royal Patron of the National Theatre by the Queen. It's the first of the Duchess of Sussex's former patronages to be taken over. So let's see if we can get the very latest on what's happening in Ukraine. The Ministry of Defence says Russian forces have made minimal progress this week, with Ukrainian forces continuing to frustrate their attempts.
Well, for the latest on developments, Yulia Mendel, former spokesperson for Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky, joins us now. Good morning, Yulia. Here in the UK, we keep hearing actually that Ukraine is doing a great job of stopping the Russian troops on the ground, and that Russia is very much on the back foot. Is that your feeling there in the city today?
Thank you for having me. Actually, Ukrainian defenders here are doing amazing work, and Ukraine have the biggest trust towards not politicians but to our army. But of course, Ukraine is united as never. This country means for us our world and our home. This is where we live, where our families live, where we create, and build our future. So here we are standing for, our home. We see that many Russians are very lost here. They don't understand what is the purpose of being in Ukraine. They were lied that they have some kind of Nazi. They don't have any enemy to fight, but they must kill civilians. These are the orders that they get. So many Russians are very angry, and the anger is very bad because they are very aggressive towards civilians. On the other hand, they feel hungry. Many of them do not have food. They are lack of fuel. They don't understand of purpose being here. They don't see any Nazi. And of course, I don't know if you noticed, but Vladimir Putin sent here people who are like 20, 21, 22 years old. They actually are very young guys and non-experienced guys. That's why they sometimes just hide, or when they're captured, they cry when they call their parents. And this is something that, is also very awful from the side of Russian leadership. But the worst thing what we see is that there are attacks that are repeating the attacks on Syria, when the cities are just blocked and being heavily bombarded, like Mariupol city. We cannot even think now how many casualties there, but there are thousands and thousands of people who just die there every day, and this is a disaster. My hometown, Kherson, is occupied right now, and Khersonians really feel huge psychological pressure, and they are on the verge of humanitarian crisis. There is food shortage there right now, and Russians are telling that they're gonna create another pseudo-republic like they done already in Donbass. So the situation is pretty sorrowful on one hand. On the other hand, we understand that we will be fighting to the very end. I strongly believe in our army, and I see that they have big results. In fact, Russia thought that they would invade our country in 48 hours. And it's ridiculous. We have so strong people with so strong values. We have people with military experience. And we know what to expect from Russia, because Russia invaded Ukraine first back in 2014. So right now, it's a very small chance, almost no chance they will get to the capital of Ukraine, where President Zelensky is situated, and they are really moving slower, though the casualties still are huge.
How important is President Zelensky in this, in terms of how he is not only leading the country, but leading individual people? I mean, standing strong in the face of what is happening. How important is that?
The respect towards the president rises over all the country, like every day. People so much support him. People so much believe him. They understand that he unified the country and he unified the whole civilized world around Ukraine. And this is a huge respect. Also, people are standing here for our country, right? And he is a legitimate, democratically elected president who represents the country. But it meant really a world for Ukrainians when President Zelensky denied the proposal of Washington to be evacuated from Kyiv. Everybody now sees that when President Zelensky says that politics must serve people, it's not just the words, it's actually what he means. So it's really a big unification of the leader and of the nation to stand for our home and for the democracy here in Ukraine.
You were Zelensky's spokesperson for 2 years, Yulia, so you know him pretty well. What characteristics does he have right now which mean that he will get through this situation?
Well, he always had the feeling of risk, much higher. Like he always felt had lower feeling of risk, and that meant that this feeling of leadership was much higher than his instinct of self-preservation. And I saw that for many times when we were traveling together to the Donbas region, where he actually was not avoiding front lines. He was traveling to the front lines. He was traveling to the places of shelling because he wanted to show the solidarity with the soldiers. It was very important for him to show that he is gonna stand shoulder to shoulder with them when there is a very risky situation. He actually was fighting his security for many times just to go to the places where his life was under risk, and he managed to do that. So I know that this is the part of his character to stand with his people and to show the leadership in this kind of way. And for me, there is no any kind of surprise that he is staying there in the heart of Ukraine, in the capital of Ukraine, being on this type of front line these days. I believe he will stand this to the very end as Ukraine too.
Okay. Yulia Mendel, we really appreciate your time this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, cybersecurity experts warn Western governments and companies need to be on a heightened state of alert over possible threats from potential Russian cyber attacks.
Now, there is concern that critical infrastructure and banking sectors could be targeted. Our security editor, Mark White, examines the risks.
Quite understandably, the world's focus of late has been on the destructive power and human cost of Russia's conventional warfare. But experts warn we mustn't underestimate the power of Russia's cyber capabilities. Although the threat from cyber warfare can seem quite abstract, it has potential real-world consequences with the ability to cripple power supplies. Health services have been significantly disrupted in the past, and the technology at the heart of the West's aviation sector is at risk. Apart from an attack on some of Ukraine's critical systems in the initial stages of the invasion, there has been no concerted effort by Russia to attack Western infrastructure in recent weeks. But as economic sanctions begin to take a real stranglehold on Moscow, Vladimir Putin is increasingly likely, we're told, to unleash his cyber capabilities.
I would say there's a fairly high probability based upon the types of grey warfare, the hybrid warfare that Putin and the Kremlin have been executing against others in the space to coerce and to bully its neighbours or adversaries. I think it's a weapon that's being held in reserve right now, but we certainly need to be on a heightened level of preparedness.
The West's banking sector is also at risk, especially as Russia has been kicked out of the SWIFT international payment system. And Russia's network of criminal gangs is another potent tool in Putin's armoury.
As well as being one of the most formidable cyber powers in terms of government capabilities, Russia also has the largest concentration by far of serious organised cybercrime on the planet. And before the invasion in 2021, we saw those criminals disrupt petrol supplies in the US, healthcare in Ireland, schools in England, food retail in Sweden. The list goes on. If the Russian state were to, if you like, unleash its ransomware capabilities, its cyber criminal capabilities, then that could get, whilst not catastrophic, that could get pretty unpleasant.
Although the West's computer systems are better protected these days, there are still inherent weaknesses, vulnerabilities adversaries would look to exploit.
A lot has been done to shore up a lot of the critical infrastructure across the UK, particularly the NHS. There are still gaps in the fabric, there are still chinks in the armour that we need to be aware exist, and we need to take precautions, compensating security controls, for example, in order to ensure that perpetrators can't get through that armour.
For now, Russia's main focus is on the conventional battlefield. Any cyber attack would almost certainly provoke a response in kind from the West. In fact, in the cyber domain, Russia is already fighting off multiple attacks from Western computer hackers who've turned away from their traditional targets of big business and government at home, focusing their disruptive talents on Moscow instead.
Mark White reporting there. Stay with us. We're going to be live in Budapest in just a moment as refugees continue to make their way into Hungary.
But first, here's the weather.
Good morning, I'm Alex Deakin with your latest weather from the Met Office. A cold one out there this morning, and for some a foggy start, but generally it's going to be a cracking day, if you like, spring sunshine. High pressure is with us, sitting pretty much slap bang across the UK, and it's going to stick around for the next couple of days, bringing plenty of blue skies with it. Having said that, as I said, it's quite grey for some this morning, parts of the Midlands, Wales, southern England. We've got some dense patches of fog. It will be clearing steadily through the morning, should be gone by late morning. And once it has gone, it's then pretty much sunny spells across the board. It is cold out there this morning, but the sun is pretty strong at this time of year. So it will lift the temperatures steadily, and by this afternoon, we're looking at temperatures well above average, widely into the teens, and we could reach 16, 17, maybe 18 Celsius inland. A little cooler in the far northwest, where the breeze will be picking up once more. And the breeze will pick up across southern parts through the evening as well. For most, though, it's a clear evening, but those temperatures will be falling away. It's going to be pretty cold if you're heading out this Friday evening. Not as cold as the night just gone, not as frosty, because there will be more of a breeze around. Temperatures mostly holding up in low single figures. But a chilly start to Saturday, and then it's another cracking day with plenty of sunshine. Shouldn't be as foggy first thing either. And as you can see, up and down the land, we're expecting blue skies during the day. Notice, however, the winds will be stronger, quite noticeable winds across southern England, South Wales, Northern Ireland and western parts of Scotland. So just be aware of that. That will make it feel a little cooler than these numbers would suggest. But look at that, maybe 16 in Glasgow, 16 Birmingham and London, 15 in Plymouth, well above average. Not quite as warm on Sunday. It will be a cloudier day for sure, and the easterly breeze picking up once more, maybe even bringing a few showers across East Anglia and the southeast, but dry and bright for many.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows. Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Morning to you. It is 8:25. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Bev across the UK on your TV and on your radio.
OK, later today, more humanitarian corridors are expected to open in Ukraine. This will allow people to escape some of the worst-hit areas.
Well, our news reporter Rosie Wright is at Budapest Gyengeti station in Hungary, which has seen recently an influx of refugees. Morning to you, Rosie. I mean, what exactly is happening there at the moment?
Yeah, I've actually just been speaking with a couple, a mother and daughter, Diana and Nelly, who fled Mariupol after the bombing of the theatre, after the bombing of the train station. They used one of those humanitarian corridors, aided by volunteers, to get themselves now to Budapest. I would have loved to speak to them and let them speak to you, but they had to rush and get a train, and that is the situation here. There are trains going to Poland, to the Czech Republic, to Germany, and of course direct trains coming in from Kyiv, from Lviv. When you get here, there are volunteers making sure 24/7 that there's places for you to get food, water. This behind me here, but then if that isn't open when you arrive, there are these buses that have been set up, and they're what they're calling warming buses, so that it is really cold, about 1 degree right now here in central Budapest. You can stay on the bus, keep warm, and then work out with these people here, and a lot of it is very makeshift. It's volunteers who've met each other on social media who've come. We just met one volunteer who's Hungarian, who's come from London, to try and then help people work out massive life decisions, where they're going to go next, making sure they've got enough clothes and warm food. Now, let's meet Elena. Elena, thank you very much for talking to us. Elena has just come from Kharkiv with her children, going to America. Can you just explain to us what kind of journey you've already taken to get here?
First we take a train from Kharkiv to Lviv, from Lviv to Chop and to Loni, and now we are here in Budapest.
And explain what it is that you've left behind.
Еще расскажите, каким вы помните последний раз вы видели Харьков, каким вы его оставили?
Ужасно.
It was disaster.
На районе, где мы жили,
in our district,
в школе были выбиты стекла.
In our district, school was under attack. And even the district was attacked. Some houses was destroyed by Russians in Kharkiv.
Постоянно были взрывы,
and we have a lot of bombs, missiles, shootings, alarms all the time.
Когда был авианалет, и у нас в 6 вечера, а потом в 12 вечера над нами просто разрывались бомбы.
We remember at 6 and 12 by the night it was a lot of bombs was shooting. Windows was destroyed, everything. That's why we decided to immediately to leave the Kharkiv to Lviv.
And so you're going to America. What's the plan?
И вы сейчас планируете в Америку. Какой план? Как вы вообще?
Now
we're preparing documents. Our siblings from USA, they prepare a document to get us, permission to get to America.
And what kind of conversations are you having with your children about what's happened?
Как вы с детьми вообще на эту тему говорите? Что случилось? О чем?
Они это сами все видели, слышали.
They saw by themselves the situation and the alarm and the shelters, because we had in those shelters together. Now we are together. It's most important when we are together.
Elena, thank you so much for talking to us. We really wish you the best for your onward journey and for safety while you're here. This is not, of course, one isolated situation. Hundreds of people, even just this morning, arriving into Budapest, working out what next, where, and then all of the logistics too.
OK, Rosie, for now, thank you.
Remarkable, isn't it, the effort that goes into bringing it all together and humans looking after humans. OK, stay with us. We're taking a look at the papers right after this.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows. Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back. It is 8:32. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Bev.
We're live across the UK on your TV and on your radio. So let's have a look at the newspapers for you today. And we'll start with Western intelligence officials thinking Putin may abandon his plans to send troops to fight in Kiev because of fierce resistance and supply problems. That's in the Eye today.
The Guardian's top line reads, nations unite to condemn Putin over war crimes. The paper also claims France believes that Vladimir Putin is only pretending to be interested in negotiating a peace deal.
Russia has targeted the Home Secretary and the Defence Secretary with fake video calls as imposters pretending to be the Ukrainian Prime Minister. That's in the Telegraph today.
The Daily Star has gone with Up Ship Creek, as it I'm just trying to be careful with that every time, as it describes P&O bosses as scumbags for the way they sacked staff yesterday. The ferry company plans to replace Brits with cheap overseas staff, according to the paper.
What a bunch of anchors, says The Sun, as their furious backlash, they're focusing on that backlash yesterday. The PM spokesman said the P&O job cuts were wholly unacceptable.
OK, let's go through the papers now with author and academic Joanna Williams and Labour councillor Kevin Craig. Kevin, MPs, second jobs.
Well,
always a controversial topic.
Always a controversial topic, Bev. And one of these stories that when you've got, understandably, a war in Europe happening can sometimes get forgotten. But the Times today, page 20, I think many viewers and listeners, I suspect, like most of us here this morning, were quite upset with some of the recent revelations about some of the outside earnings of MPs. Famously, The MP Sir Geoffrey Cox, as it says in the article, paid almost £6 million for legal work since becoming an MP. But who'd have thought it? The government is now opposing plans to limit MPs' earnings from second jobs, only months after the PM vowed to crack down on politicians neglecting their duties. So I think some viewers and listeners will find this a bit disappointing, right? It's a huge honour to serve in the House of Commons, and I think there's public appetite for.
See, you're a Labour councillor. You've got your own business.
Yeah.
If you ever decided to stand as an MP and you got in, would you?
You'd have to. Yeah.
Would you?
Yeah.
Nah, come on,
Yeah,
Kevin.
I would.
You've had your business for years. You wouldn't want to just give it up.
No, but you'd have to, especially what I do, because some of our campaigns are directed at influencing politicians. But I would have to.
Oh, you'd be. Believe me, you'd fit right in.
No, but you'd have to. It's a serious point, right? And if you can't do that, then serving is not for you, I think, honestly.
No, I have to say I completely agree. It should be a full-time job. If you're dedicated to helping your constituents, if you really believe in the cause and why you're there and the issues that you're fighting for, you need to be doing that 24 hours a day.
Well, so you
might be allowed to sleep a little bit. But
you couldn't come on and do a newspaper review or write an article for the in-house magazine at the House of Commons or...
What's a good question is the MPs who earn money from books, broadcasting, and those who serve as doctors still. I mean, I think that is slightly complicated, but they're not the ones that made the public angry.
See, the trouble is...
so it's all about what the public thinks and not about the principle of it.
Yeah, I think listening to the public, we don't do enough in this country, Steve, don't you think?
Well, I would...
Listen to the people.
I would agree. However... You can't work on a point of principle and say, well, no second jobs unless it's a job that people like.
Well, I'm just saying it's slightly complicated, but I think that what is notable today is that the government, their actions don't match the rhetoric. And that's why it's a great article on page 20.
And my guess is there's lots of people watching this programme who maybe work in a supermarket or a teacher or else, who are thinking, have a second job? I wish. You know, they're exhausted when they get home from the
But we
first
do need
job.
the best people in government. We need good all-round individuals that aren't just career politicians. And if that means, I mean, surely they bring some insight, possibly. I mean, I'm playing devil's advocate here because I can see it from both sides. But surely if they have another job or another business, that brings some insight into the role in government of knowing what the outside world, outside of Westminster is like.
It does, and it's such a great point. But the thing is, I think we got to a position whereby people said you're paid, I think it's 82 grand a year, right? And old Sir Geoffrey there was doing his business from a villa somewhere in the West Indies, and that is not right.
No, but there are but with all that, there are extreme cases, and obviously we focus on the extreme cases. A lot of MPs have second jobs that pull in, I don't know, 20 grand a year, 30 grand a year.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still a decent wage, but nevertheless, I mean, you're not talking millions or hundreds of thousands.
No, I think what would be a good compromise, which is still, it seems, not on the table, is if you actually could limit the hours even, you know, and put something in place and also limit some of the things. The other person in particular was Owen Paterson, who was in Parliament and actively lobbying, and all sides agreed. But there needs to be something.
It was the lobbying that was breaking the rules.
Yeah, but it's you know it's still not enough. I think the second jobs thing. I think the public I think it is okay to follow the public often, Stephen. I don't think they're happy with this.
No. Well, let us know what you think. GBViews at GBnews. Where are you? There you go. GBViews at gbnews.uk or tweet us at GBnews. Joanna, looking at the Mail and another COVID jab.
Another one. Yet again, we'll all go and line up for another jab. I have to say, I'm very, very pro-vaccine. I think the vaccines have been the biggest breakthrough, scientific breakthrough that we've had over the past few years. That's just been amazing. And it's essentially where we are now. It's why we have the freedoms that we've got today, because we've been vaccinated. We've been able to reduce the risk of COVID essentially to, well, less than flu. It was reported earlier in the week. But having said all that, the idea that this is becoming a reality now, that we're pretty much all going to have to be jabbed every 6 months or certainly once a year, you know, is something that we're going to have to face up to, and what that means. Because as far as I'm concerned, what we can't do is shut down the NHS completely once a year to get everybody in the population jabbed. And what we can't do is scare people into submission. It's got to be a voluntary thing where people go and get the jab because they want it. Basically, basically, I think it's got to be exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say. You know, some years I get the flu jab, some years I don't, but it always feels like it's my decision. I think it's a sensible decision to make, but it's my decision. And what worries me at the thought of doing this every 6 months or every year is that we have these full-on fear campaigns. We shut down the NHS. We put all the resources into this.
Fear, Joanna. It's public health. That's not
well,
fear. It's trying to get people to do the right thing, surely.
Well, yeah, but you look at what was the impact of getting everybody to get that third booster shot before Christmas. You know, the economy was devastated. We didn't have a lockdown, thank goodness, but we effectively had a lockdown because we scared people so much that they ended up cancelling going out, you know, cancelling holidays, staying at home. And actually, as that turned out, that was out of all proportion to the risk that Omicron posed, given the fact that we had these brilliant vaccines.
Well, it's a bit early in the morning, but I must respectfully disagree. And I think I remember on GB News on the 4th of January, you said, I'm not prepared to put my life on hold to protect the NHS. And I think the problem is, with some of these debates, sometimes we say things like fear campaigns, a public health campaign, no one's sitting around in government trying to scare people. We got through Christmas. Bravo to the government. Actually, they made the right call in not going for a lockdown. But these are not fear campaigns. This is public health. And you did say that.
Kevin, what you've just said is actually untrue. There are people in government who do get paid to sit around working out how to scare us. It's a group called Spy B, whose very job was to work out how public behaviour could be controlled. And fear was a real crucial part of that. So it's actually factually inaccurate what you've just said.
No. The objective is to save their lives, not to go objective one, scare. It's objective one, save lives.
It depends how much at risk their life was anyway. We still have, from 2020 onwards, the average age of death from COVID has remained at 82.5. And that's really important to remember, that the majority of those who succumbed with COVID on their death certificate were elderly, were already ill. So I'm with you, Joanna, in terms of the fear campaign. Of course, it's well documented now about the nudge unit in Downing Street. The indiscriminate one-size-fits-all is what I've always had a problem with, because everybody, whenever you take any medical intervention, it has to be a personal, individual risk-benefit analysis.
Yeah, but this was just about, I mean, can any of us disagree that the government's intentions, and this is the same whether the Conservatives or Labour in power, is to ultimately save lives? Not scare, save lives.
Do you know what? I'm enjoying the fact that you're having a go at the government, Joanna, and you're defending them. It's not what I expected. Anyway, again, let us know what you think. It's all about your views. That's what matters. There you go, over there. You keep moving. You're over there again. GB Views at gbnews.uk. Can we have a look at, because I like talking about this sort of thing. It's in the Mail, Joanna, the woke brigade.
Well, the woke brigade's a bit of a cliched way to call it.
Well, it is, but it is that thing where you sort of think, I can't believe it.
No, exactly. Well, this is a story, and we haven't had a story like this about campus censorship in the US. American students at Yale University, one of the best, most privileged academic elite institutions in the world, kicking off about a debate taking place on campus. Obviously, lockdown, put an end to all these debates. So we didn't have this kind of spectacle of students protesting speakers. But the irony of this particular debate, and the reason why I think this has made the newspaper, is the debate was actually on the topic of free speech. And it was actually about two speakers from different ends of the political spectrum trying to agree with each other and trying to say that we have to keep debate going, that we have to look for points that we've got in common to keep discussion. And yet the students, potential lawyers, future lawyers, these, like I said, top academic students, shrieking and screaming in order to have this debate shut down, kind of leaves you feeling a bit depressed about the state of the future of society, certainly future lawyers.
Yeah. What do you reckon, Kevin?
Well, I actually agree with Joanna on this. I dislike the curtailing of debate on university campuses, and this story on page 9 is sad. And it's okay to feel depressed by that, but optimistic about young people. And also, you know, these days it's harder to be racist, it's harder to encourage hate against others. So it's not all bad. You know, I'll tell you, when I was at university 25 years ago, and I'm a real patriot, I love the armed forces, I love this country, but back then a Ministry of Defence spokesman said, you can't be in the army if you're gay. And so we asked the army to leave our recruitment fair, and I had all sorts of aggro. But now I look back at that, and you'd never justify that sort of discrimination.
No. Well, that's a fair point. That is a fair point. But it is just that when you have students campaigning against a free speech debate, there's something going on.
Joanna's right.
And do you know what the sad thing about this? This is a debate that basically descended into emotion.
Yeah.
And haven't we seen too much of that in the last 2 years? When people can't calmly discuss both sides of any situation without it becoming personal and aggressive and difficult. And that's what's happened in this situation. That's what we've got to start teaching our young people. It's okay to disagree.
Yeah.
Just like hold your emotions in check while you have these difficult conversations. Life is a series of difficult conversations to realise as you get older.
Of course it is. And, you know, if you love this country in terms of Britain, you have to love it and love people who don't share your politics or your views. You know, that's what makes us amazing.
And that's how we grow. That's how we grow our intelligence.
But especially for law students, I think this is the other crucial point to this story. I mean, if lawyers can't cope with hearing arguments that they disagree with, how are they going to cope defending people in court? And, you know, you sit through a murder trial, a rape trial, you're going to hear all kinds of really gruesome things that you'd rather not be confronted with. But that's your job, and that's what their law degree should be training them to deal with.
You would think so, wouldn't you? Look, Joanna Williams, Kevin Craig, it has been a joy. Thank you very much. It's nice that we ended on agreement today. Makes a change. It is time now at 8:45 for On Your Doorstep. Let's head to Newcastle, County Down, and our Northern Ireland reporter, Doogie Beattie. Morning, Doogie.
Good morning and welcome back to this beautiful caravan park in Newcastle. To the right of me is a nature reserve, behind me is Royal County Down Golf Course, and of course the Mourne Mountains. And with me now is two very lucky holiday makers, Stacey and Nicole. And basically, when did you arrive down?
We arrived down on Wednesday.
And what will your main thing be doing when you're here? What will you be at most?
Relaxing, eating and going out for walks.
Now, in the period of the last couple of years, it has been rough to try and get holidays and stuff. And you bought your van last year, is that right?
Yes, last May.
And, I mean, how much use would you get out of it?
Every weekend we get a lot of use out of our van.
Well, that's pretty good. And have you had family here before?
Yes, my parents own a caravan here for over 20 years.
So you've basically grown up here?
Yeah, grown up here from a young age, yeah.
And what do you find nicest about Newcastle?
Everything. It just feels like a second home. It's lovely.
Well, Newcastle itself, these caravans, they are quite a costly item, and it takes you to get a lot of use out of them. But I mean, the children, I suppose, will get, I don't know, a sort of an upbringing amongst the rest of the children and amongst the caravan parks. How do you find the sort of friendships that they form?
These ones are still a little bit young, but everybody's really friendly here when you're walking around, and everybody knows everybody, so it's nice that way, and it is a lovely sight. As you say, we're close to everything. We've got everything we need here.
What are you planning for the weekend?
Probably a trip down to the beach. Yeah, that's about it.
Well, there you go, a trip to the beach for the weekend, children running around, and the caravan park itself is filling up quite nicely. There's cars all over the place, but Newcastle itself is quite a good holiday destination. It's a family destination, and anybody that wants to visit Northern Ireland should not go past Newcastle County Down.
We'll bear that in mind, Doogie. Thanks very much indeed. It does look nice, doesn't it?
So nice.
And just out of getting away and that open air and the beach and all the rest
When
of
he
it.
said, here I am on this beautiful caravan park, I thought there was going to be some people going, is there such a thing? I love a caravan park. I'm not being a snob. I love a caravan. You spent all my childhood holidays in caravans.
Nothing wrong with that.
No, we're fabulous.
Nothing wrong with that. I can imagine sitting around the table with a pot noodle.
And frustration.
No. Oh, that's mine.
And playing grabs. Great.
Anyway, now to political matters for you, because the Conservative Party starts spring conference in Blackpool later on today, with a drive to broaden its appeal in the hope of retaining the northern seats it won from Labour in 2019.
So, Tory party chairman Oliver Dowden says the party needs to stand for mill towns and mining towns, as well as the metropolis.
Well, let's head up to Blackpool and talk to our political correspondent, Tom Harwood. Morning to you, Tom. I mean, it is all about levelling up then. Is that the main focus of this conference?
That certainly is. Of course, we're now into the second half of this Parliament. Over 12 years of Conservative-led government in this country, and the Conservative Party that is gathering here today in Blackpool is looking ahead to the next elections. The local elections, of course, in May, but also that future general election that could be 2 years away. This is what it's all about, gathering the party together, talking about what can be delivered, but also organisationally. How can this election-winning machine go on to win again? It's interesting being here in Blackpool. We're in Winter Gardens here, which is the site of a lot of Conservative Party history. Back in 1977, this is where William Hague, a 16-year-old William Hague, first gave a famous speech to Conservative Party conference. This is where Margaret Thatcher first delivered a speech at a conference after winning the 1983 general election. And this is the place where David Cameron gave his famous 2005 speech with no notes, which put him on course to becoming Tory party leader and then, of course, Prime Minister. There's a lot of Conservative Party history here at Winter Gardens in Blackpool, but it's also about this new sense of a northern-focused Conservative Party. The party has 2 MPs around here now, something that hasn't been the case for many, many, many years. So a rejuvenated party, shaking off the scars of the torrid times of Partygate, trying to come together and looking ahead to the future electoral events.
I mean, do you think the party is united? I mean, as you say, Partygate does seem to be sort of heading into the history books a little bit, though it may resurface. But is there a sense that backbenchers there are satisfied with what the PM is now doing?
I think there's an enormously greater sense of unity now than there was even a few weeks ago. We've seen, for example, the leader of the Scottish Conservative Party, Douglas Ross, retract his call for the Prime Minister to resign. Another prominent backbench MP, Andrew Bridgen, is withdrawing his letter to Sir Graham Brady as well, calling for there to be a leadership election. It seems like the party is more united now than it has been in some time, although that is up from a very low bar. Of course, at the time of national unity, indeed Western unity, looking at all of the problems that the world is facing right now, particularly Ukraine, I think that the Conservative Party thinks this Prime Minister has performed fairly well when it comes to Ukraine, certainly better than some continental European powers, which were a little slow on the uptake when it came to recognising the threat from Russia and providing defensive military aid to Ukraine. I think to some extent there is a greater sense of unity around all that, although forever hanging over the Prime Minister's neck like a sword of Damocles is, of course, that investigation. It hasn't gone away, that Met Police investigation. That may well report back in the future months, and when that does, the question is, will Partygate rear its ugly head again? It doesn't seem like it now, but never say never in politics.
Oh, indeed. Sorry, Bev, I was just going to say, it's going to be a strong conference for the Foreign Secretary. It's going to be a pretty strong conference, one would imagine, for the Health Secretary. But what about the Chancellor? Because he has come under a lot of fire. This whole cost of living crisis, which is not going away, there's a lot of pressure on him to take some action.
There certainly is. Actually, Rishi Sunak is speaking at 11 a.m. today, so we can expect in his speech to hear something about what we may be hearing on Wednesday when he delivers his spring statement, that mini-budget where he's expected to produce measures to deal with that cost of living crisis. Certainly a huge amount of pressure on the Chancellor today, speaking, as I say, at 11, so we'll listen out for what he has to say in terms of anything new in terms of help for families and businesses across the UK. But he's not the only person speaking today. There's a whole raft of cabinet ministers speaking today. Jacob Rees-Mogg, also the Brexit Opportunities Minister, will be speaking, along with Grant Shapps, the party chairman Oliver Dowden as well, and Health Secretary Sajid Javid. There's a huge roster of speeches from cabinet ministers, but also from ordinary party members, because of course this is an event about the voluntary party getting together and organising for those future electoral events.
OK, thank you, Tom. Tom Harwood there at the Tory Party conference in Blackpool.
Oh, the Winter Gardens.
Have you ever been to a political conference?
No, I've not done conferences.
So I went to a Conservative one once, and it's like a sort of a kind of youth club vibe. They're all very excited. All the MPs are all very, very... It's like a school residential. They're all very excited to be there.
Therese Coffey will be hitting the karaoke machine.
They're going to say the Pleasure Beach.
No,
having a swim at the sandcastle.
She might be, yeah, she might be. No, she's a big karaoke fan.
Is that right?
Coffey, yeah. She likes a glass of red wine and a cigar to go with it.
Oh, you're giving it all away. Well, I'm sure Tom will bring all GB viewers and listeners up to speed throughout the conference in the next few days.
He will, he will. Lots of you getting in touch this morning. A lot of you about the P&O situation. Chris, morning, Chris, says, is maritime law fit for purpose in 2022? Well, I think the answer to that clearly seems to be no. Registration law needs to change to protect those that work in the industry at sea and on shore. And on this, Tony says, sorry, I'm not a political person, but once more Labour have chosen to criticise and trash the government. We're talking to Jim McMahon earlier on, instead of giving firm proposals.
On P&O as well, this has got a lot of you riled up. Gary has said the government must act and revoke visas, work permits, etc. This action by P&O cannot happen in Brexit Britain. I think what Gary's referring to there is the suggestion that there will be cheap labour brought in from overseas to take the jobs of the P&O workers.
Yeah, and just final one from Wendy. Morning to you, Wendy. On the NHS, says, my cousin in Yorkshire has just been told there are more years behind you than in front, so we will not operate to remove your gallstones. Case closed. I mean, that's shocking, actually, unless there's some medical reason for it that we don't know about. But, you know, the idea that they should just say, well, there's more years behind you than in front means they're not going to do anything is a pretty shocking state of affairs. I'm
really
sure you'll agree. Keep your thoughts coming through, and we'll go through more of them a little bit later on.
OK, stay...
Good morning, I'm Alex Deakin with your latest weather from the Met Office. A cold one out there this morning, and for some a foggy start, but generally it's going to be a cracking day, if you like, spring sunshine. High pressure is with us, sitting pretty much slap bang across the UK, and it's going to stick around for the next couple of days, bringing plenty of blue skies with it. Having said that, as I said, it's quite grey for some this morning, parts of the Midlands, Wales, southern England. We've got some dense patches of fog. It will be clearing steadily through the morning, should be gone by late morning. And once it has gone, it's then pretty much sunny spells across the board. It is cold out there this morning, but the sun is pretty strong at this time of year. So it will lift the temperatures steadily, and by this afternoon, we're looking at temperatures well above average, widely into the teens, and we could reach 16, 17, maybe 18 Celsius inland. A little cooler in the far northwest, where the breeze will be picking up once more. And the breeze will pick up across southern parts through the evening as well. For most, though, it's a clear evening, but those temperatures will be falling away. It's going to be pretty cold if you're heading out this Friday evening. Not as cold as the night just gone, not as frosty, because there will be more of a breeze around. Temperatures mostly holding up in low single figures. But a chilly start to Saturday, and then it's another cracking day with plenty of sunshine. Shouldn't be as foggy first thing either. And as you can see, up and down the land, we're expecting blue skies during the day. Notice, however, the winds will be stronger, quite noticeable winds across southern England, South Wales, Northern Ireland and western parts of Scotland. So just be aware of that. That will make it feel a little cooler than these numbers would suggest. But look at that, maybe 16 in Glasgow, 16 Birmingham and London, 15 in Plymouth, well above average. Not quite as warm on Sunday. It will be a cloudier day for sure, and the easterly breeze picking up once more, maybe even bringing a few showers across East Anglia and the southeast, but dry and bright for many.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate.
From all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows. Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Demonstrations will be held today against P&O's decision to sack 800 staff.
Good morning. It is 9 o'clock on Friday, the 18th of March. This is Breakfast on GB News with Stephen and Bev.
We're live right across the UK on your TV, we're on your radio, and we're online. And this is what we've got for you today.
Unions will seek legal advice to challenge the P&O Ferries sackings after the company blamed the decision on losses of £100 million following the pandemic. We're live from Dover with the latest.
All remaining COVID travel measures have been axed as of 4 o'clock this morning. The Department for Transport said a range of contingency measures would be kept in reserve so ministers could take swift and proportionate action in the face of potential new variants.
Smoke and explosions have been heard near an airport in the western city of Lviv this morning, with air raids ringing throughout the capital. As media regulator Ofcom revokes Russia Today's licence to broadcast in the UK, we'll speak to one of the organisation's former advisors about what this means for the channel.
Also this morning, security experts warn of a high probability of Russian cyber attacks in the weeks ahead. We'll bring you an exclusive report.
Quite understandably, the world's focus of late has been on the destructive power and human cost of Russia's conventional warfare. But experts warn we mustn't underestimate the power of Russia's cyber capabilities.
This comes as Defence Secretary Ben Wallace and Home Secretary Priti Patel hit out at Russia's dirty tricks after they were targeted by an imposter pretending to be the Ukrainian Prime Minister.
Don't forget, we'd love to hear your thoughts on anything we're talking about today or anything you think we should be talking about. gbviews@gbnews.uk or send us a tweet at gbnews.
Now, as you're waking up this morning, the story continues about P&O Ferries. It has caused outrage, of course, by making 800 of its staff redundant, effective immediately, and cancelling all of its ferry services for the next few days.
Well, staff will now be replaced with cheaper agency workers. Crew were told in a video call that yesterday was their final day of employment, but some staff members refused to leave their ships in protest and were forcibly removed by security.
P&O said it was a tough decision but it would not be a viable business without the changes. The government called the workers' treatment wholly unacceptable, and a staff protest is planned for 12 o'clock today.
Well, of course, one of the most affected ports is Dover. It's got the busiest P&O route. That's between Dover and Calais, and our South East reporter Ellie Costello is there for us this morning. I mean, this must be a devastating blow, Ellie, not just for the workers there, but for the town itself, of course, which is going to be economically reliant on a lot of the money those workers are bringing in.
Absolutely, Stephen and Bev. It's estimated that about 500 of the people sacked were based here at Dover, and they are people that live and work locally. They spend their money in the local shops. It's safe to say that the feeling last night was absolute devastation in this town. I was speaking to workers who were, up until yesterday, working very hard on the ferries. Behind me here, there's 3 P&O ferries parked up here. They are absolutely distraught and shocked that this decision was made yesterday. This was more than just a job to these people. It was a lifestyle. And yesterday afternoon, we did see cheap agency workers come in on minibuses, and that was as British staff were being escorted off these boats. And we did hear reports that in other ports such as Liverpool and Hull, some of the workers were actually barricading themselves in their cabins and staging a sit-in. They were refusing to come off those boats. They did eventually come off last night. And here in Dover, there were protests on the street yesterday. The RMT union actually blocked 2 roads, but loads of support here from local lorries and cars beeping their horns. They also want P&O to reverse their decision. I think it's pretty safe to say that P&O Ferries and their parent company, DP World, which is based in Dubai, didn't expect this kind of backlash from politicians, from the public, and from the unions. And they have suffered greatly through this pandemic. They probably thought they could just cut their losses here, but it has not gone down well in the court of public opinion. So we're expecting protests later on today. They're hoping this decision will get reversed and those hardworking people can get back on those boats to the jobs they love so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Ellie, thank you. It's hard to imagine that people wouldn't actually think there was going to be this sort of reaction. If you've been affected by the P&O redundancies, we'd love to hear from you this morning. gbviews@gbnews.uk or send us a tweet at gbnews. Now,
it's only Friday morning. We're here for the next 2 days as well.
We are.
You go. You've been here longer than me. You go.
Keeping in sync with all of this. Now, let's return to the ongoing situation in Ukraine. And the Ministry of Defence says Russian forces have made minimal progress this week, with Ukrainian forces continuing to frustrate their advances.
So joining us now is retired British Army officer and military historian Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Riley. Good morning, Jonathan. Thank you very much for joining us. We're hearing of explosions near Lviv's airport today. Do you think that is a sign that Russia are advancing and doing better maybe than they've done in the last few days?
Good morning to you both. It's very kind of you to think that I look young enough to be a lieutenant colonel. Actually, I'm a lieutenant general. But to move to your question, I think we should distinguish between what's happening at the tactical level on the ground, on the fronts, and what's happening at the level of the campaign. And it's very clear that at the tactical level, the Russian military has been pretty bad at stitching together a combined arms battle in joining up tanks, infantry, air, artillery and so on, while the Ukrainians have performed much better than everybody thought. And they haven't presented big targets. They've gone after the Russians asymmetrically. But equally, they're not able to break out of places where they're encircled. Or mount a major counter move, although they have got forces that we haven't seen yet. If we go to the campaign level, it appears to be stalled, but what may be happening is that there is a deliberate pause because of the ongoing and upcoming negotiations. And we now have a very good idea about what the Russians' demands are, and actually they're sitting on what they're asking for. The Donbass, Crimea, the Black Sea and Azov coasts, they're sitting around the capital, and they're poised in the Black Sea off Odessa. And probably Possibly. The Russians are waiting to see what the Ukrainians' responses are to their demands. And if they get their way, that can be presented at home as a victory. If the Ukrainians refuse, then I think we will probably see what's termed an echelon change. Fresh troops coming in and a new move in an unexpected direction. And I think that's the big question is what's going to be the outcome of that round of negotiations.
I mean, that sort of pause would give them time to regroup and replan, because one of the key issues at the moment seems to be an issue with their supply chains, which you would imagine they would have got in place ahead of this.
Yeah, you would. And again, it's not been something that they've done very well, even allowing for the time of year and the thaw making conditions difficult. They are operating on external lines. And they've certainly used more fuel and required more spare parts, used more ammunition than they were expecting. You see, I think they planned for a very short campaign, just a few days, and they resourced that. We're now well into the third week, approaching 4, and they've probably used up their first line of supplies very quickly, and they're having to bring forward more material, which is taking time.
Tapping into your knowledge and experience as a Lieutenant General, Jonathan, does this conflict so far compare to any other conflicts we've seen in recent time? Does it have shades of former wars that we've seen? And in your mind, how did they pan out? How might this pan out? What comparisons can we draw?
Well, it's probably quite instructive to look at what the Russians did in Chechnya, in Georgia, their recent intervention in Kazakhstan, and indeed their intervention in Syria. These all went much faster, but of course they faced less determined opposition, except in Syria, and they went much more according to plan. There's an old military saying that no plan survives contact with the enemy. Actually, no plan survives contact with a photocopier, and clearly this one didn't. And I think that's a very obvious comparison with many former wars where things don't go to plan. And if you compare this with the invasion of Iraq, for example, the invasion of Iraq went much faster. But it's all about the enemy. You see, the enemy has a vote. And Ukraine is not Iraq. The Ukrainians have their hearts in the business. They know the ground. They called up all their reservists, and they're able to dominate much of the difficult terrain, urban and rural, and slow the Russians down. If the Russians they've avoided getting heavily embroiled in urban terrain. Which is very sensible because it's hugely greedy in consuming lives and munitions and so on. And I think that the example of that will be with them is Stalingrad.
Yeah. Look, what is very difficult in all of this is to see what a potential end game could actually be, Jonathan. If they took the whole country, they couldn't hold it, the Russians. Obviously in some sort of negotiated settlement, they're saying they want to keep Crimea, they want Mariupol, they want the Donbass region, they want Odessa. Taking all of that would cripple Ukraine economically, removing all its key port areas. So that's not going to be a solution that anyone's going to be happy with, apart from the Russians. So what could an end game be here?
Yeah, I think you hit the spot with the difficulty in holding down the whole country. The un-Russian, if you like, bits of Ukraine, the population's 44 million. So you're going to need plus of 500,000 troops to hold it down. Ethnic cleansing might reduce that, but the fighting men would certainly stay, and you've got an insurgency on your hands. The negotiation position that the Russians have put forward through the Turks, obviously that's the first offer. I don't think that there's likely to be any compromise in Putin's mind on the Donbass, the Crimea, its water supply, or indeed the coastal corridor leading to it. unless some sort of arrangement with the corridor was made, as with Poland and Kaliningrad. Odessa's a different matter. You've got to give your enemy something with which to negotiate, and Odessa could be the bargaining chip that brings about a compromise. You keep Odessa, gives you an outlet on the Black Sea, but we take the rest. They'll be unwilling to go into Odessa, just as they're unwilling to go into Kiev, but not only because they're built-up areas, but also because culturally, Odessa and Kiev are hugely important to the Russians. This, after all, is where Russia was originally born before the centre of it moved to St. Petersburg and Moscow.
OK. Look, Jonathan Riley, really appreciate your time this morning. Thank you.
Pleasure.
OK, some breaking news in the last hour. A media regulator, Ofcom, has said that it has revoked the Kremlin-backed broadcaster Russia Today's licence to broadcast in the UK with immediate effect.
Well, in a statement, the Ofcom chief executive, Dame Melanie Dawes, said freedom of expression is something we guard fiercely in this country, and the bar for action on broadcasters is rightly set very high. Following an independent regulatory process, we've today found that RT is not fit and proper to hold a licence in the UK. As a result, we've revoked RT's UK broadcasting licence. Well, let's talk to someone from Ofcom, should we? Former Chief Media Advisor to Ofcom, at least Martin Campbell. Morning to you, Martin. I can't help but think that Ofcom's been a little bit slow off the mark here. I mean, removing the licence to broadcast is significant, but it's been, in effect, taken off the air in the UK anyway.
Yeah, yes, it has. And I think there's probably a good reason for that, Stephen. Deutsche Welle reporters have already been expelled from Russia because Germany took RT off air and revoked the licence. I guess BBC and UK reporters are now going to have big problems and will probably be expelled, and that really will be bad news. And it may be one reason why Ofcom have held back from revocation, because as you say, it was a European decision to take RT off the satellite, and that's not the same as revoking their licence, which Ofcom have now done. I mean, what bothers me is that it's a little bit of an embarrassment for Ofcom, I think, because TV state television, by its nature, it is going to give you another side of the coin. And you wonder in some ways why it was licensed in the first place, because it was always known it was financed by the Kremlin. It was set up by Putin over a decade ago when he was actually prime minister. So everyone knows that Novosti was effectively the voice of the Kremlin, and the difficulty that Ofcom have always had with RT is when finance becomes control, because you can't have a license that's state-controlled. And clearly, Novosti is financed by the Kremlin, but controls the license. So it's been a tricky one for Ofcom. And the embarrassment, I think, is that they've sort of been told to do this by government. And every time someone like Theresa May or Liz Truss stands up and says, we've told Ofcom to revoke the license of RT, or we've told Ofcom to look at the problems that RT are having, it becomes less and less independent and looks more like an arm of government, and that's a tricky one too.
It's a dark day, Martin, isn't it? This, in terms of censorship and in terms of the government deciding who the public can and cannot hear from. Aren't the public intelligent enough to make a decision if they watch Russia Today, to use that information to offset it with something you might see on the BBC, to offset it with something you might see on GBNews? Doesn't this take away an element of choice?
Yes, I think that's an excellent point, and I think both the government and Ofcom are being pretty patronising to the average UK person. I mean, okay, RT, Russia Today, there is a clue in the title as to what you're going to get, and the idea that no one can put it into perspective is a little bit crazy. So, I mean, like so many things that have happened because of this invasion, that it hasn't been handled very well.
It sets a very dangerous precedent, though, doesn't it, in terms of what we as the public can have access to if the government and in collaboration, or if Ofcom, with pressure from the government, can just take off an entire channel.
Yes. Yeah, yes, it does. I'm not saying that they shouldn't have taken it off. I mean, they've had many complaints. 2 years ago, 3 years ago, they were fined £200,000 for partial broadcasting. So, you know, it is no surprise. But I think the difficulty that we see now between the government and Ofcom will pose problems for the future, because I mean, Artie, you'll still be able to find it online if you want, and as you say, I'm sure people can put it in perspective. The difficulty with all this is that so many problems have arisen that maybe could have been solved much earlier on.
OK, look, really good to talk to you this morning, Martin. Thank you.
You're welcome.
OK, stay with us. We've got all the latest royal news as the Duchess of Cornwall is made patron of the National Theatre by Her Majesty the Queen. See you soon.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows. Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
It is 9:21. Welcome back. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Bev across the UK on your TV, on your radio and online.
Now, today it's been announced that the Duchess of Cornwall is to become royal patron of the National Theatre by the Queen.
It's the first of the Duchess of Sussex's former patronages, easy for me to say, to be taken over. Let's talk to the GB News royal reporter. It's a new role, and Cameron Walker has bagged the top job. Good to see you this morning. Congratulations on the new job.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
Yeah, I bet, because there's always a lot to talk about with the royal family. And it's really important, isn't it, as well, within this role, to really understand the nuances of everything that goes on within the royal family, because it's not an easy thing to cover at times, is it?
No, it's certainly not. And I think there's certainly two sides to every story. And this has become very apparent ever since Virginia Duchess of Sussex decided to step back as senior members of the royal family. But I think in my role, I'd like to be impartial.
Yes.
Give both sides of the story so the viewers can make up their own mind.
Quite right, too. Look, in terms of what is happening with Camilla, I mean, these roles that were previously held by Meghan do need to be handed out again. It's interesting that Her Majesty has decided that this should go to Camilla. I mean, is it a sign of increasing trust in her as the future Queen?
I think it is certainly a sign of increasing trust, but Camilla herself is an avid theatre goer. She is a supporter of the arts. She's currently patron of the Theatre Royal Bath, Unicorn Theatre for Children and Georgian Theatre Royal. And she was also an avid supporter of the arts during the coronavirus pandemic. Of course, all the theatres had to shut down, lots of people were out of work, and she continued to support them in her own way. As you said, this is the first of the Duchess of Sussex's former patronages to be redistributed to a different member of the royal family. And I think, as you said, the Queen, it just shows her growing trust in Camilla for one day her future role.
Because she will be Queen Consort.
Yes.
Possibly, probably, in the who knows. We don't know. We can't speculate. I mean, it's a bit early to put you on the spot with that, Cameron. You've only had this job 5 minutes, and I'm asking you to predict when Charles is going to become king.
No, that's not a tough one.
No, we're not even
time.
No, yes, quite. That's exactly the right answer. Definitely
He's
get
good.
the job.
Yeah.
No, hopefully not for a long time. But in other royal news, there's this interesting stuff because the whole Diana. Interesting, isn't it? How all these years on, the Diana story never quite goes away, does it?
No, it's not. And in fact, this August, on the 31st, it's 25 years, a quarter of a century since she died in that Paris.
You weren't even born, I bet.
I was 9 months old.
I remember where I was. Do you?
Were you?
Do you remember where you were?
Yeah,
I think it's one of those moments.
I worked for ITN and my pager went off in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Well, because it was a day that completely shocked the world.
Oh,
yeah.
Terrible.
And it's something which I think everyone remembers, and it's one of those moments where you're like, where was I that day? And
absolutely.
Something sticks in your
The
mind.
legacy is long, isn't it? So the BBC's paid the former private secretary of Diana, Princess of Wales, Patrick Jefferson, a substantial sum in damages. This is all about the Martin Bashir interview, isn't it?
Yes, it is. So that infamous 1995 interview with Panorama, which Martin Bashir conducted with Princess Diana, which caused a huge rift within the royal family, and it actually led to Diana, Princess of Wales, and the Prince of Wales, Prince Charles, divorcing a year later in 1996. The problem now is that it's come to light that Martin Bashir acquired that interview with Princess Diana under false pretenses. He forged fake bank statements which appeared to show Princess Diana's former private secretary, Patrick Jefferson, was in fact being paid by British Secret Service to spy on Princess Diana, which of course made the princess very paranoid, and she agreed to this interview, which is completely false. That didn't happen. And then the Dyson report shows that the BBC tried to cover this up. So the BBC now yesterday did pay a substantial sum of damages to Patrick Jefferson, and they said in the statements the BBC accepts and acknowledges that serious harm was caused to Commander Jefferson. So hopefully his name at least is now cleared.
Yes, let's hope so. Look, really good to see you this morning. Congrats on the new job. We look forward to interviewing you lots and lots.
I'm sure I'll be back.
Well done.
Oh, you will, you will. That is it from us today. We're back tomorrow at 6, but Tom Harwood is up next with the briefing live from Blackpool.
Good morning, I'm Alex Deakin with your latest weather from the Met Office. A cold one out there this morning, and for some a foggy start, but generally it's going to be a cracking day if you like spring sunshine. High pressure is with us, sitting pretty much slap bang across the UK, and it's going to stick around for the next couple of days, bringing plenty of blue skies with it. Having said that, as I said, it's quite grey for some this morning, parts of the Midlands, Wales, southern England. We've got some dense patches of fog. It will be clearing steadily through the morning, should be gone by late morning. And once it has gone, it's then pretty much sunny spells across the board. It is cold out there this morning, but the sun is pretty strong at this time of year. So it will lift the temperatures steadily, and by this afternoon, we're looking at temperatures well above average, widely into the teens, and we could reach 16, 17, maybe 18 Celsius inland. A little cooler in the far northwest, where the breeze will be picking up once more. And the breeze will pick up across southern parts through the evening as well. For most, though, it's a clear evening, but those temperatures will be falling away. It's going to be pretty cold if you're heading out this Friday evening. Not as cold as the night just gone, not as frosty, because there will be more of a breeze around. Temperatures mostly holding up in low single figures. But a chilly start to Saturday, and then it's another cracking day with plenty of sunshine. Shouldn't be as foggy first thing either. And as you can see, up and down the land, we're expecting blue skies during the day. Notice, however, the winds will be stronger, quite noticeable winds across southern England, South Wales, Northern Ireland and western parts of Scotland. So just be aware of that. That will make it feel a little cooler than these numbers would suggest. But look at that, maybe 16 in Glasgow, 16 Birmingham and London, 15 in Plymouth, well above average. Not quite as warm on Sunday. It will be a cloudier day for sure, and the easterly breeze picking up once more, maybe even bringing a few showers across East Anglia and the southeast, but dry and bright for many.
GB News is